Hello, welcome to episode 10 of the VonDubCast. Guest today is Kyle Ricento. I met Kyle in my second year university. He was one of my little first year minions on the floor, but we became really close really quick and spent the whole year together. We never saw us apart. We drank every night and partied maybe a little too much, as both of our grades that year would allow. But yeah, Kyle didn't quite connect with university just like maybe he had hoped, and it wasn't quite for him. He ended up going back to Calgary the next year. Was trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life and kind of went down a couple different paths, trying things out, and wasn't happy with where he was and made a big change, and is really happy now and really kicking ass in his new job working for World Financial Group. And I kind of pressed him on that, and we go over it towards the end of the podcast, trying to give a little education on what he does, and if anybody's interested in investing or joining his team. Like I said a few times, I don't feel comfortable recommending World Financial Group just because I don't know enough about it, but I do feel comfortable recommending Kyle because I know he works hard and he takes care of people and he does it for the right reasons. And I've watched him build his team up, and he really cares about it. He wants them to succeed. So if that's something that you thought you want to make a change in your day-to-day and want to try something different, maybe you can give him a shout. Thank you guys for keeping on listening. This is episode 10. I can't believe 10 episodes are going to be in the books already. Loving all the positive feedback I've been getting. Just wanted to kind of throw it out there that I am a big boy. I can take the improvements and the criticism. So I would kind of like, now that I've had 10 episodes, for people to give me a little bit more. If you see areas I can improve, please reach out and let me know. I mean, I hope you can do it in a nice way so that I can make it productive and not come at me in or from a bad place. But if you have something that you think I could use and use to get better, please feel free to send it my way. Please, if you have an extra minute, subscribing to me on whatever you listen to, that does really help. Giving me a little review, a 5-star review, also goes a long way for the algorithms, just to get in front of more people. And if you could follow the VonDubCast on Instagram, I'm going to try and put it, as I get more into this, I'm going to try and put more on there, maybe add some links and some things from my past guests, and maybe just things that are interesting me that I think you guys could benefit from. Any podcasts that really hit me and I think would be benefits to you. So yeah, if you go follow that as well, that would be another great help to me. But yeah, we got lots of episodes in the can already recorded that are I'm pretty proud of, and I'm really excited to get them out to you guys. So sit back and enjoy this one with my buddy Kyle Ricento. It's a little bit motivational. I hope people can get something out of this one. All right. All right, welcome everybody. Episode 10 of the VonDubCast. My guest today is one of my best friends from university, Kyle Ricento. We met in second year. He lived on my floor in Lister and came on, I think the first day we were doing kind of introduction games, and he pulled out his guitar, and he was the other guy that played guitar on the floor. And I think within the first couple of days we had played together and got to know each other just the slightest bit. And from there it was off to the races. I don't think we spent more than a couple hours apart that whole entire year. And we were thick as thieves, got into a lot of hijinks, had a lot of fun, and a lot of really deep conversations. I like to credit a lot of my personal growth in that year to Kyle. I don't know if I've ever told him that, but I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that today. He was always a very open mind. He was always very good at being able to admit when he was wrong and change positions with grace. And I think that was a big thing that I learned, even when we were miles apart on the subject. And I really liked that out of Kyle. He would push back at me and make his theories known. But if I was able to make a convincing argument, he would accept that, change his mindset, and we could move forward. And I think I took a lot of that into myself. And I think that was a huge step up in my evolution as a person, was learning that skill, because it is a skill and something you have to practice, but it really lets you move leaps and bounds when you can take that in. So I think that's something I like to pivot to Kyle. And then we kind of lost touch for a few years, and just these last couple of years we've started talking more and more, and Kyle's really enjoying his life. And I knew as soon as I had to started this podcast, I knew I'd have to have him on and have a chat with him. So welcome, Kyle.
Hey, I appreciate that, Nick. That really means a lot. All those kind words that you just said, and man, it's crazy. The time just flies. I mean, how long ago was that now? Like
second year university, then two more.
6 years.
6 years, probably. Yeah, 6 years ago that, and we've probably seen each other, what, twice, three times maybe in person after that year. We went a whole year of, like I said, maybe hours at the most of being apart that entire year, and then going to see each other maybe 3-4 times in person after that is quite a shift. But what I love about it is when we do talk like this, or when we do get to catch up, it's just like old times where, 5 minutes in and it's just like how it used to be, and we can catch up like that. And I think those are those connections that people need in their lives, and that is what's missing in a lot of people. We don't get that kind of deep connection, because when do you get an opportunity like that to build a relationship where you're around somebody that long and you can get to know them on such a deep emotional level that all those little superficial things that can kind of throw wrenches in places are out the window, because you've already surpassed so much further than that stuff doesn't even matter, right? If we have difference of opinion on politics or sports or something silly, it's never going to even brush the surface of where we've gotten to. And I think that is just a beautiful thing that people, I think maybe these days is not as it's not put on the pedestal it should be, right? I think that is a very important piece that people kind of lose. And I think that's what another big piece of this podcast was for me, is I wanted to reunite with those people that I did have that connection with, and show the importance, and show what you can do. And I think that podcasts are maybe the new form, the modern form of what we're talking about. Maybe you can't spend every day of the week, maybe that scenario that me and you got to kind of luck into, like that isn't there. But if you can find ways to induce long form conversation where you're putting your phones away and discussing something with people, going to those deeper levels, opening up, being vulnerable, you can create that in your own world with the people around you. You just have to be very, picky and choosy of who you open yourself up to. And if you can find the right people and get to that level, I know it's scary, but it'll help people out so much throughout life. And I think that's very important. And maybe just while we're on that tangent, maybe who else in your life in these last couple of years, Kyle, have you found more people like that in your life that you can connect with like that? Have you kept that going?
Yeah, for sure. Those are some awesome points that you made there. It's so true. I mean, I'm super grateful that today in this whole, I mean, how do we call it? Let's call it the COVID era, right? And
Yeah.
in this era that we're going through, we're still able to connect like this. And I mean, it's crazy. You're in northern Alberta, and I'm out in southern Ontario. And even though we're thousands of kilometers apart, being able to do this, it's so cool. And I love what you talked about there with the associations, right? The people that we hang around. And something that I've learned after post schooling, and as I've really got into my career is, we become a combination of the 5 people we hang around the most,
Mm-hmm.
and the books that we read. And definitely hanging around guys like you, even though it's not as much as I would like to. We're definitely increasing that again. But a couple people that have been instrumental in kind of my growth, I guess you could say, and just instrumental in my life.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple people. I mean, along the way, of course, there's been bits and pieces here and there from all sorts of people, like yourself. But one of my main mentors, if you will, is a
Mm-hmm.
gentleman named Steve Holbrook.
Right.
Uh, he's been in business for 15 years. He was a baker at Earl's, making $11 an hour when he started in business, and now earning 7 figures annually. And so it's not just about the money, but being able to have someone to guide you through around the potholes, if you will, navigate you before you drop yourself, you fall into them.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't agree more. That's crucial.
Yeah, and hearing something like that, that's maybe where I was leading. I knew you'd have lots, but I've heard you talk about what's his name, Steve Holbrook?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about Steve quite a few times, and just the way you do talk about him. And I'm sure we'll get way deeper into this. Maybe we'll back up and kind of lead into how you found World Financial Group, where you're working with Steve now. But I think for me, when I look at some of those things, I'm a very pessimistic person sometimes, and I have a lot of questions about those. And I'm sure I'll ask a lot of those about World Financial Group and those. But I think one of the big things that gave me um, not faith. I think the faith is the wrong word, but I was optimistic about it more so than I probably would have been. Was knowing that you did have a good mentor like that. And I think associations and programs and companies are one thing, but the people within them, like you say, who you're around, and the way you would talk about Steve gave me a lot of faith that okay, you're in somebody's hands that cares about you, because I cared about you. And that was one of the biggest things. And something I want to talk about was after that year of university, and then seeing you, you left university, you went back to Calgary, and you started working at a bar. And I was, I didn't want to overstep. I was just your friend. I was 1 year older than you. I had no place to say anything, but I got to see what a bright light you were, and the fiery passion that you had when you were passionate. School obviously wasn't that, and it didn't get you out of bed. I got to see how many classes me and you skipped as a whole, right? And midterms maybe missed, but to me, it was quite obvious that it wasn't any lack of intelligence or drive, because you were very clearly driven in other areas, right? If it excited you when we talked dodgeball, I mean, I've talked dodgeball on this podcast, and that was a big part of Lister. You dove right in head first, and you made it your life, and you dedicated yourself. Same with the gym. I would see you go to the gym, and you could clearly dedicate yourself to things, but it wasn't those. But I could just see that just capability within you, and I think it was hard for me to watch that not be wasted, because nothing is ever wasted. If you're enjoying life, nothing's ever wasted. And I think that's a big realization that people need to have. And I think it's easy to not realize that. And it's a really slippery slope into some dangerous places with that mindset you can get, right? You're never wasting time. You're enjoying it, and you're always learning. You're always getting better. But for me, I just wanted to, scoop you up and put you in, that was the first thing I did when I graduated and got a job where I could hire someone. The first thing I did was call you. And this was just how time always works out. You had just found World Financial Group at this time, and we're really diving into it head first. And I was a little worried about it, because I wanted to make sure that it was the right thing for you and that you were going to be successful and it wasn't leading you down a bad path. I didn't know anything about World Financial Group, but I trusted you. And I trusted when you told me about Steve Holbrook and stuff, that was something I understood, and I understood people in the way you were discussing it, and that I could latch onto. I may not have had the ins and out of what World Financial Group does, and I may have had some concerns with this. Like I'm saying, we'll definitely get into them, and I want to ask you about them, because I think it's good for people to know, and it's good for you to be able to have to answer these questions just by the way you work. But that was something that gave me a lot of hope, and just made me a little worry about you a little less. I know it sounds silly for friends to worry about friends like that, but definitely it was something I worried that you weren't maybe pursuing all that you could in life, and you just had so much to give, and I was worrying about that. And now to watch you find something that you love so much and be so passionate about and dedicate yourself to, like I could see you it was so obvious to me that all you needed for something was for something to catch your eye, to ignite that fire within you that I had seen light before, and you would dive right into it. And it's so nice that you've gone to that point. But maybe just before we get into World Financial Group and what it is, how were you going through that? Because that was also a time where we probably lost touch the most, was right after I kept going in school. Lister moves fast, and you have lots of friends and those relationships. And I never forgot about you. I don't want to say that at all, but you just get busy with your life. You got busy with your life. And how was that process for you? What were you feeling inside when you left school? Was that a confusing time? Was that a time of change? Where were you at that time?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate everything that you said. I there was lots of times that I felt that way about myself as well.
Of course,
right? I wish I could come and swoop myself up, and everything's going to be okay. And but I mean, it like you could imagine, it was a difficult time. I mean, I grew up in a highly educated family. My father has a master's and PhD from USC and UCLA. My mother's Japanese, so you can kind of imagine what the plan was for me.
Yeah.
Right. So, for the first time in my life now, I was going into uncharted territory. Basically, there was no longer a plan. There was no, okay, you do this, and then you go to school, and then and you got your sports in between, and so I was lost. I was broken. I was looking for something. I was looking for something that I could be a part of. And I thought for a period of time that I could build a new community in the bar industry. And I'm sure we're going to get into that. But, the very basic matter of fact was, at that time, I was lost. I was looking for what I was going to do. I would even go as far to say there were times when I was hitting rock bottom. I was living a quiet life of desperation, and thankfully I did still have some good people in my life, just like yourself. Even though we weren't as close as we were, it's still knowing in the back of my mind, right, that it's always reassuring.
Yeah, and just the knowledge that someone cared, that you can build a relationship. When you build a relationship to that level, implicitly that someone would always be there for you, and I think that is something that does help you get through those. And I was listening to a podcast this morning on my run, actually, and they said, we're talking about just the ups and downs that everyone goes through. And like you say, you feel that lost sense, and you're always looking for something, and you might grab onto something that you think is positive, and you dive yourself into it, and it brings you on an up, and then you go on those downs, and you're going to always have that cycle through life. But they just were talking about how when you can find those moments of happiness, and sometimes that takes a lot of self work and a lot of force of will to make yourself happy. Happiness is a skill, and it's something you have to work towards, right? And I think that what they're talking about is that you have to, it's two sides. You have to work to be happy, and you have to take advantage of those ups and chase your dreams on those, because it's really hard to, when you're at that rock bottom place. Everyone always talks about that as kind of the change that implements the big leaps that they take. But a lot of the times it's too hard when you're at that rock bottom place. Just getting out of bed sometimes is tough. I've been at that point myself where I want to be, out crushing the world and chasing my dreams, but it's just tough to do the very basics, right? Maybe just going into your regular 9 to 5 is just tough enough. How am I going to try and chase anything up? But you have to, one side of the coin, build yourself up so you can have those ups, and then when you are at those ups, you have to change. You have to make a change, right? And those times of that roller coaster you run, it's not unreasonable. Everybody's riding that same one. Everyone's having those ups and downs, and it goes back. I know I say this on every podcast, but that imposter syndrome of everybody thinking that I'm the only one that thinks this way. And how can I ever make a change when I'm doing good for a couple of days, and then I'm down, and I feel like what am I even doing here, right? Everyone has that, and you need to be able to have that understanding in order for you to take that leap. And I think also another scary point to it is when somebody is in that lost space, like you talk about, it's easy to reach out for things that seem comforting, seem okay. I think a lot of times we see people go down bad paths when they are desperate and when they are looking for something. And I think that was also maybe one of the things I worried about when I saw you at the very start jumping into World Financial Group. I worried, is this something that Kyle is just, lost and needs to reach out for something, and it's an easy out? And I think that worry was with me. And I called you, I think when you first told me about it, I had to call you and get you to break it down for me for a couple hours, which I've promptly forgotten. And you're going to have to re-explain everything to me today, because I know you've explained it many times, but I forgot. But I needed that because I was worried. But then in those conversations, I got to hear that passion that I've seen before, right? I'm well familiar with it. It was just never put towards maybe something that was really going to drive yourself forward that much, right? So being passionate about going to the gym and passionate about, something like dodgeball or sports is one thing. But when you can see it, see that focus and that drive put into something that's going to really move you forward and help you succeed in life, I think that's what really excited me. And that's what kind of put a lot of my fears to the side, because I thought I might have a couple questions about this group, and that is what it is. But if you're this passionate and you are surrounded by good people, it won't matter, right? You will find success, even if it even in the worst estimation of what you could think of it in your mind. If you are dedicated to it and you want to take control, and there's clear cases of people like Steve that can find success, there's clear success stories to look for. If anybody can find that, it's going to be someone like you, Kyle, right? With that passion, with that drive, with that with the brain that's in that noggin of yours. I know that you will, if there's a path there to success, you will find it and you will drive yourself. All I needed to see was that passion. And that was what made me, I guess that was probably the last time I tried to recruit you and steal you to come work with me, was probably when I first got to see that, right? I know for years there, I was always trying to, and even while I was still in university, I was always talking to my dad, I think you need to just reach out to Kyle and get him, move him up to slave and get him working and stuff. Cause I could see that. And I knew all it would take for you to get that fire lit, and you'd be off to the races, and you'd be a complete asset to whatever it was. It doesn't matter whether it's WFG, whether it would be our business, whatever it was. If you got the passion for it, I knew you'd be just an unstoppable force. And that was what was hurting me so badly, to see you working at a bar and that bar scene, and you would talk about it like it was your passion, but I could feel it wasn't. I don't know if that makes sense, but you would, even when I would call you and ask about it, you were trying these things out with Red Bull, and you were making connections, and you were networking and all these positive things in the way you were saying it, but for some reason, none of it didn't 100% ring true. Some of it rang true, and there was aspects of it that I could tell you were enjoying, but it wasn't what you really wanted to do. And I think that's why I always still had that worry. And even though you were telling me you were happy and you weren't lost, I could feel that you were. And I think it's that. And I think that's something that I've noticed as a big change in you from these conversations. Now, when I talk to you about what you're doing currently, it doesn't seem phony whatsoever. It seems like you are really passionate about it. And I think that's what backed me right off from asking questions and put me to the point now where we can get on something like this. I can ask you all those questions, and maybe areas that I was pessimistic about, and you can put me in my place and kind of show me how it really works. And I think that will be also good for you and your success, right? To have people in a long form process be able to hear what you do, how you make money, how you can help other people make money, and if that resonates with them, they can come on board either to work with you or invest with you. And I think that is a really cool. I think it's really cool that just the way our paths diverged and reconverge at this point, where I'm trying to build a platform where I can bring knowledge and different viewpoints to people, and you're bringing this point where you're also trying to help people and help people make money, and that we can just reconvene in a space like this to help push both of us forward in a real meaningful way is just really cosmically beautiful, if you will, right? Just the way things work out. And that's one of the funniest things I've been noticing lately is just the ever since I started pursuing this podcast and pursuing, I call it my dream because this is my dream. And I don't know if that's how you refer to yours, but I like to think of it, this is my dream. And just the amount of weird things that have come together and the amount of weird people, just you watch a weird YouTube video that has someone that is exactly speaking of things you've been thinking about for months, and then you can reach out to them. And once you dedicate yourself to the grind of this is what I want to do, how things just start to fall in place. Did you notice any of that once you started to pursue the WFG, that, little things here and there started to just fall in place? People you'd met that had things you didn't even know you needed that were right there, seconds away. Did you feel any of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, just a quick thought that's on my mind, but before I dive into that, just backing it up a little bit. When we were talking about rock bottom, and sometimes it can be difficult, and I just one tangible thing that really helped me that I just want to share, because hey, maybe someone listening today, Nick, is in a rut right now, right?
Of course.
They're
I guarantee it. I guarantee it, Kyle. I guarantee you someone will listen to this, whether it's in 2 weeks or 2 months, that is struggling. I think, for sure it will.
Yeah, no, and it's very simple, and it's this. Look, a rut is just a rut. It's not a grave, right?
Mm-hmm.
A rut is you're 6 inches down. A grave is you're 6 feet down. And so
right.
if we can identify that, hey, I'm just in a rut. This isn't my grave. I'm not here forever. And we identify that we're at rock bottom, and we don't want to see what the next level of rock bottom looks like, or the one after that. Rock bottom, the big turning point for me, and it was in a message that I heard. It's funny you said, watching videos and filling our minds with good content, just like we got to fuel our bodies well, right? You got to fuel your mind well too. And I just heard that, hey, when you're at rock bottom, that's a strong foundation for you to catapult off of. Rock bottom is not meant for you to stay there. Rock bottom is a setback, yes, but it's a set up for a comeback. Yeah. Right? That's the point where you just got to decide, okay, right, I was meant for more than this. I'm not supposed to be here forever. And then, like you said, once you make that decision, I mean, I don't know what all of your spiritual beliefs are and things like that, but I do believe that there is some sort of higher power out there. Call it the universe, call it a God, whatever your
simulation, anything.
Right? It's just so interesting when you start to put yourself out there, and you really just you let go of all the barriers. You stop caring what other people think. You do start to really attract these things into your life, and you start to notice them the more when they are present for you.
Yeah,
so I couldn't agree more, brother.
Yeah, and I think on the spiritual level, I think what is missing, and what I'm very guilty of this, because just if you want to talk spiritually, I was always I was raised Christian as a small child, kind of became, I guess, pseudo atheist. I didn't even know what I was thinking about at that time. High school and then early university, I was kind of at that point, and I was very much against anything spiritual, anything really. I just thought it was stupid. It's bullshit. And my 180-degree turn that I've taken lately, it's not that I'm not going to church by any means or anything like that, but like you say, it almost doesn't matter what form it takes, whether it's Buddhism, Christian, right? Just some force in the world that good, whether it's karma, any of those things, simulation. What I found is, if you can find the aspects of those things that are positive, that has moved society forward, that was the biggest driver of society for thousands and thousands of years, probably until the last maybe 50, that it's started to lose its position. There's other things that have rose up to meet it, but there's got to be positives in there. I know there's a hell of a lot of negatives, and I'm be the first one. That's all the mindset I was in, was looking at all those negatives for all these years. But just lately, I've started to look at the positives, and it doesn't matter about belief. Even it's good to believe, because it's a cheat code to where you need to be. But even if you don't believe it, if you can establish the positive effects clearly in your mind, and then um, act as if they are true, you can still reap the same benefits acting as if something's true and actually believing if something's true, right? And that is what is so beautiful about, manifestation and all those kinds of things, and care and putting things out and getting things back, all those, even if you don't explicitly believe, even if your mind won't let you, 100% buy into them, if you can get yourself to the point where you can at least intellectualize the ideas behind them, and there's nothing to lose, right? If it doesn't work, you're just being a better person for the most part of what all these traditions are trying to put you onto the path of. At the very base, they want you to do better, they want you to have compassion, they want you to have forgiveness. That's pretty much the message at all of them. If you can work forward with those as tenets in your own life, however, whatever form that takes, you're going to do better. Whether you believe them or not, you're going to be in a better place. And I think that is something that we're really feeling the effects of, how far away from that we've gotten, and like I say, I was the biggest one that was guilty of this. Anytime I would put people into a box when they would speak their religious views, just, oh, if you can believe that, like, you're an idiot, right? And I never had any time for the positive aspects of it, to give them that little bit of space to listen to them and have a conversation, see what they're getting out of it, right? They might not believe some of the crazy part. They may not believe that somebody walked on water. They may not believe somebody turned water to wine. But if they believe in the more basic tenets of it, or they just, like I said, find that it's better to act as if it is true and reap the benefits, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that is a huge change. I think a lot of the consequences that we're seeing today is a loss of some of those things that are just very basic tenets that were easily passed down with those, but we just haven't found a new way. Maybe religion isn't the way that we need to pass those down, and maybe spirituality is the new religion and where it needs to get to. But with all this technology and moving forward, we've lost all those aspects of religion, not just religion itself. I think it's the aspects that they were bringing forward, and we haven't found the new thing to pick those up and bring those forward in our culture. So now we're moving at a breakneck speed with technology and advancement without any of the matching compassion and groundswell of forgiveness and everything that needs to go with it, and all those core tenets that make us good people to be able to wield these incredible powers that we're building. And I think that is something that we're really missing. So just
Yeah.
now that I've ranted for 20 minutes again on my own, what do you think of spirituality? And if you're willing to say, of course, no
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is awesome. I absolutely love these kinds of conversations. And um, I mean, you might be able to relate to this as well, Nick, but for me, for a long time, this whole idea of working on myself and improving myself, and it's like the whole self-help
Yeah.
mentality, right? It's like, oh, I don't need self-help, right? People who read those kinds of books, in terms of trying to grow their mindset or work in different areas of their life,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can relate, but for me, I always used to look at those people and be like, well, kind of like you said, put them in a box,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't
I
want that.
still do. I try not to, but I find myself, I still do that, Kyle. And I'm sure we'll get into it more, but that is one of the areas. But I'm trying, because I saw it with religion and that sort of thing. What I was doing, I'm trying to give myself. I'm still not great at it. I still do that same thing when I see those self help and that's very different, right? A guy like David Goggins, a guy like Cam Hanes, those really motivational guys that come from such a true place that I never have any question for those guys, right? Because their actions are showing. I think that's where I separate. When I just hear somebody speaking words to me um, that are motivational, that's one thing, but I always have questions that come with it, right? You very well may believe everything you're saying. It may be great stuff that you're saying, but if you don't have something to back it up, like David Goggins and Cameron Hanes, who are both ultra marathon runners, but they have when they're trying to fire you up, that they've done something and that they've done the work. They've gone to those dark places and have something to show for it, and that's what they're bringing out to the world. That's what they're giving away. They've clearly shown that they have something worth listening to. And I feel like that's my big disconnect a lot of the times with self-help and some of those aspects is if what you're saying is worth, if what, I guess, if what you're saying is worth listening to, it shouldn't be very hard to prove it.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like I struggle about that a lot because I feel like with this podcast, I have a lot of things to say that are worth listening to,
Hmm.
but I always felt like, well, I have nothing to prove it. Right. But
Right.
why not go out, try, and instead of being so scared to fail at this, Why not just try it out? It can only be that bad, right? And I'm going to get better every time. It'll never be as bad as the one before. Well, obviously you have peaks and valleys, but the median of the trajectory of how you're getting better is always upward, right? And if you just hop into it, eventually what you have to say will resonate or not resonate, but at least you tried. And if you in fact do, like I do believe that I have something to say that's worth listening to, eventually that will come through. And I think that is ingrained. I think that's why I'm such a strong proponent of telling people to chase their dreams and finding, whatever makes you happy. Try and find a way for that to make you money, instead of toiling away, or if you've already got something that makes you money and you're secure in that area, find something else, whether it's knitting, whether it's passion. And if you find that is your passion and you find yourself enjoying that, maybe then you can try and make part of your money with that so you can invest more time, right? There's always ways you can go. There's always things you can chase to get yourself to the place you want to go. It's just about having the freedom and the lack of taboo around it to chase those, right? I feel like more and more school and how people are raised and culture is about kind of following that path. Like you talked about earlier, you nailed it on the head, go to school, get your degree, get a job, do this. And it's great to create cogs in the wheel, but it's not great. That's not how you create progress. That's not how you create visionaries. That's not how you create entrepreneurs. There's a whole, in an effort to make education and as uniform and bland as possible across everybody, we're losing what makes us so special and what has got us so far in the first place. And that is what I see as one of the most scary things of our time, of that lack. And I think that long form things like this, of allowing people to talk about their dreams, and it's not embarrassing, right? And then if, like you say, there's that one person that was maybe teetering on that edge, they're in a rut, and they know the change that they could make that would probably make them happy, but it's so scary, it's terrifying, right? But to have just more voices saying it's not that bad, take that shot, whatever, you fuck up, who cares, we'll forgive you, right? I have way more respect for people that try and fail than people that just say, like, you said it earlier, life of quiet desperation, that saying, it's amazing, right? Like most men live lives of quiet desperation, and it's so true. So many people go to jobs that they hate because they don't think they have another option, and there's other certain things that, life moves fast, and a lot of the time it's not your fault, and you have kids, you have a wife, and things just move so fast you didn't have time to chase your dreams. But instead of taking personal responsibility for themselves and finding ways with everything in place, right? I'm not saying it doesn't make it any harder to have that. And I'm very lucky with a million things, how I was raised, the parents I had, the stability, being able to travel, the mindset I got to go. I'm so lucky in so many ways. The fact that I realized this before I had kids and I don't have those, but I think that is a lazy excuse to say all these things around me is the reason I can't chase my dreams. If it is your dream, you will find a way to work within those parameters to chase that dream. And I think that's the message that we need to get to, because so many people just think it's a lot easier to sit there and feel bad for yourself. Well, I wish I would have chased my dream, but I got 2 kids and I can't. That's not, that's what people want you to think. That's easy. Nobody, it's a strong reflection on a lot of feeling that people have when there is so many people desperate like that. To hear people that are willing to chase their dreams, it just shows a reflection of yourself not doing it, right? And I think that is what makes it so much easier for people just to sit on the couch and talk about it and self-pity. And we see self-pity just growing and growing, and that is in a world where mental health is growing and the self-pity is growing. There's so many different areas that are all converging into errors, and the more people that are chasing their dreams and leading by example and being able to talk about it like that. And that's exactly why I knew I had to have you on, Kyle, because I've seen you go through this process. You're a prime example, and there's examples all over the place that I can bring people on and hopefully show that to people, and hopefully they can learn some things in the process. But I just
I appreciate that. And just, one thing that it was really kept on popping into my mind as you were saying those things is that, we're, as humans, we like to kind of wait. We like to wait for the perfect opportunity, right? It's when everything is perfectly aligned, when the stars are in the sky, and when Mercury is perfectly in line with the sun, or however that works, then I'll do it. But like you said, the reality is there's never gonna be a time when everything is perfect. It's not everything is gonna be perfect in order to get things going. Mm-hmm. You just got to try. You just got to try. And I love that. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And, but what I think a big piece of that is it's the, as soon as you try, you're accountable for it. Right. And I think accountability is, I think accountability. We keep making all these horror movies about werewolves and vampires and stuff. Make one about accountability. That's what people are scared of these days. What you see more people are terrified of accountability, right? And that's what I was, and me included. I talk about this like it's not me. I'm big. All these things I talk about, a lot of it is from my own personal work and seeing it in myself, and then once I see it myself, I see it in the world, right? But that accountability. I wanted to start this podcast for so long, but as soon as you start a podcast and people listen to it, now you're accountable to keep doing it, right?
And now you got to do it every week when you said.
Exactly. And that was terrifying. That was what was keeping me from doing it for so long. But eventually I had to take, and that's all it took was the first step. The first step I took was ordering these stupid fucking mic arms. I didn't quite have the commitment level to order the mics and the recorders because they're more expensive, but I ordered the mic arms. Okay, now I'm in. Now I'm accountable. I've done that. And then, I think it was like, it might have even been the same day after I took that step. No, fuck it. I'm ordering this all, right? Because I'd already taken one step. I'm accountable to it. What are they going to show up and I'm just not going to use them? I'm not going to order the rest of the shit for them. No, I have to, right? And you force that accountability. But then, like you say, once you force yourself into it through that fear, you're on the other side, and that's when things start to come together, right? Once you are on that path and you stick to it, right? And all it takes is just sticking with it long enough for that first weird, universal, cosmic thing to fall into place for you, whether it's in my sense it was a good guest, or that first good feedback of, hey, you can do this, from people. Starting to hear one of the biggest things for me was, I think I had 3 episodes recorded. I had 5 episodes recorded, right? And that was my goal. I wanted to have 3 to release at the start, have 2 more so I wasn't pressured up. Again, this was just me creating more and more things to put it off because I was so fucking scared about it, right? Looking back. Yeah. But that was my goal, right? I said, okay, now I have that goal and I have to do it. And I think it was the day, maybe a week before I put it out, and Sam Harris put out a podcast that had so many of the things that I had said in the last 5 podcasts just summed up way better, in way more concise, way more articulate, and I listened to it and I'm like, fuck, like, well, what am I doing? Like this thing. But then it occurred to me, I definitely had that self-pity, which is easy, like I talked about. Oh shit, what's the point? Even like, clearly there's people out there who are doing this better. But then, you flip that around, you think about it, oh, that's awesome. This guy that's been, podcasting for this long, Sam Harris, this very well respected, is having the same kind of thoughts. He might be further ahead on the game and has been doing this longer, is more adept at being on a microphone and at articulating these things. But I'm on the right track. I'm thinking the same things, right? And that really turned me around, and that got me really excited. Okay, maybe I am on the right path, right? That's very weird. But then same thing, I was talking about with my sister about these ideas I have in the States for their political system in all these ways. And then I'm listening to these podcasts that come out and almost word for word say these ideas that I was having, and just how many, and just, it's been off to the races since then, of these weird little connections. And I talked to one guy, I had one guy on the podcast who knows somebody in the Oilers organization. Then you get that, it's just so amazing to see all these little things and how they happen. But all it took was that first step. These things started to fall into place almost immediately after I decided to order these boom arms, and I took that first step of accountability, and now I was accountable to it, and I knew I wasn't going to give up, and I had to keep grinding this. That's when everything started to fall into place. But I think people don't realize that, because unless you have something, and I think I'm going too far with that too, because I think I noticed that even with work before, of coming into this role in Grand Prairie and being way out of my element at 23 years old, not knowing what I was doing, running this minute. You have employees that are probably average age of 40 some, right? Truck drivers in the office and admin and all this stuff, and not knowing what you do. But if you put forward and you grind and you are confident that you can figure it out and that you're just not going to give up, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to give up, I'm going to keep doing it. Then you see these things fall into place. And it's like, okay, well, I've done this for a couple of years in my work role, and I've learned all these things and all these values and all this stuff. And then why can't I put this towards something that I'd really enjoy? If I enjoy this with work, and now I put it towards my dream of something I love, like podcasting, just the sky's the limit. How far can it go, right? And I think people don't ever, all you need is one little taste of that, of what you can accomplish. All people need is one small spoonful of their own not worth, but what they're capable of, right? I'm sure there is a word, but a word for what you are capable of at the max of your potential, right? Everybody needs a spoonful of their own maximum potential. Yeah. And that's what set you off. You just need a taste of it and you can see. And I think that's what it is. And I think that's why messages like David Goggins and Cameron Haynes are saying, all they're telling people to do is go and try and run a 5K today, right? Try and do something. Try and do something. That's the message of all these things that are taking off. Look at Joe Rogan getting a 9-figure deal, like high 9-figure deal from Spotify, and pretty much the message he's putting out is compassion, love, forgiveness, and get out and do something, try something, better yourself in some way, get a
Yeah.
taste of that, right? They may not be explicitly saying it as in depth as I just described it, of, a taste of their own uh, potential, but I think that is on another level. Maybe it's not explicitly said, but that's what people are waiting for, right? There's no leadership anymore in the day. You look at who's the leaders in all these countries, and it's just a sham. It's focus grouped. It's focus grouped points that they're saying out that don't resonate with anybody, because they're none of it comes from the heart. None of that. And now everyone's searching for areas that have leadership, and you can almost tell what the people really want by what they're um, subconsciously asking for, and where people are subconsciously funneling to. And I think that's a huge area, and we're going to see in the next couple of years of that being an explosion of the next people want logic, people want reasonability, people want forgiveness, people want that, but they're being showed this other way. But it's an underground groundswell, and I think the more people that are able to speak like that, and crush down those taboos of it's not okay to talk about your dreams and talk about what you want to do, and all those kind of things, being reasonable, not being scared to say what you mean. I think that's going to be the big groundswell that pushes this forward and lets people see those things, right? Everyone wants to chase their dreams. But again, man, I feel like I'm just talking the whole time, not even letting you get any words in, Kyle.
But it's so true what you're saying. I love Nike because their slogan is "Just do it," and sometimes like that's what you need. Just acting, do it. I mean, done is better than perfect, right?
Yeah, done is better than perfect. Fucking rights. I love that. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you were to go and dig up content that these current content creators, the Gary V's, the Ed Milet's, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. If you went and you saw their first podcast or their first video or their first social media post, you'd be like, no, this isn't the same person. But how did they get better? They did it. They did it. And then just like you said, I mean, let's go back to playing sports. Right? The biggest critics are usually sitting where? In the stands. And it's the people on the ice that are learning. They're learning. And you know what? When we start, you get on the ice, you fall down, right? Just like the time we went to the ODR at Lister. Right? If you keep going, you keep getting the reps, and I love what you said about that whole victim mindset. It's like, why me? Right? It's no one else in the world has problems. If I had this, then I could do what so and so is doing. But here's what I've found in my experience so far, Nick, is if you took that group of people and you had everyone put their problems in a basket and draw out new problems, people would want their old problems back.
100% they would. And I think that is exactly what it is. It's that flip side of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is neither good nor bad. It's an evolutionary imperative that has pushed us really far and has kept us in check, kept us brought humility into us. But what now, instead of it driving people, it's driving people into self-pity, because self-pity is easier. Right. And it takes that swing of looking at that imposter syndrome, right? Because like you're saying, everyone thinks it's just me if anyone had my problems, but everyone thinks that way. That's what imposter syndrome is, right? Everyone has that. Nobody understands, but that's what, once you understand that everyone feels like nobody understands, then you can move forward, right? Now you can use it as a positive. You can use it to push you. It's easy to just self-pity yourself. I have lots of problems, and it's a pandemic. I know there is a real pandemic going on, but there's been a pandemic going of self-pity for years and years before that, right? And this is just exacerbated now. And now you see people that all they want to do is talk about the bad things. They want to keep everything locked down. They want to, right? I mean, they don't want to listen to science. And if science is what says that we should lock shit down, that's what we should do, right? I'm not against that. But before even hearing science, all they want to do is just whatever. What makes us be able to sit at home and say, "Oh, we have the worst luck," right? That's what everyone wants, and that's what really scares me with this. Is that's what's impeding progress, is that mindset there, right? And I think that's why we need to. I mean, I feel really silly for talking about imposter syndrome on probably like 8 out of the 10 podcasts I've recorded so far, but it's so important, and it manifests itself in so many different ways. And I think it's a huge issue that people aren't doing, or aren't realizing. There's just such a mindset. It's such an easy idea that can have such a profound shift in your mindset and your worldview. And I just think it's something that everyone needs to be talking about, needs to be shouted from the rooftops. I think it needs to be in our curriculum. I think that should be taught from like grade 4 on, right? That everyone feels this way, right? Almost a mental health class, maybe more so than just an imposter syndrome one. But teach these kids about mental health, about our brains, right? when you look at everything society's created, it's all up here, right? I mean, we have strong bodies, we have opposable thumbs, and those allow, but it's our brains that allow us to bring these notions into reality and build these amazing structures and these infrastructure systems. But we don't take care of our brain, right? We don't. There's no emphasis put on it, but that's the most important piece to everything, and we don't talk about it like we should. And I think that is something that, again, going back to the first thing I said, it's that progress of technology is moving so quickly that we're forgetting, we're not catching up with all these other aspects that need to go along with it, right? And we need that. And I think that's where I think that's another way where that message of taking care of yourself, taking care of your mental health, that is groundswelling at a crazy rate. I don't think it's even fast enough than what it needs to be, because I think
Yeah.
It's such a big issue and would be have such groundbreaking results moving forward that I don't think it's enough. But it's nice to see, and I think that things might take a bit of time to swing back into correction, right? There's always parallels that swing out to one side and get way too far off on the left side, and then swing back to the right, get too far, but eventually they bounce out to the middle. And I think that's what we're seeing with this. I think the faster and the more people talk about it and talk about the importance of it, the quicker we'll get to that middle ground where we are bringing those really
Yeah.
important pieces back into the conversation. But
Yeah.
all you can do is do it yourself, right?
Yeah. Well,
You
and I
know,
think
go ahead.
and I think one thing too that you're talking about here with imposter syndrome too is that, you know, a lot of times we get caught. I mean, a person wakes up first thing in the morning and they're on their phone and they're checking Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at people's stories, and the reality is that that's the highlight reel of someone else's life,
Right.
right? That's not their ins and outs. They're not there posting all of the
Mm-hmm.
shit, all of the BS, all of the fires they had to put out that day, all of the calls that they got. You know, maybe they got a phone call at 7 a.m. and
Yeah.
their best guy is leaving them. And then we compare our, you know, it's think about in the NFL, if you and me wanted to go to the NFL and we're competing against all these guys that are showing, you know, their highlight reel, the one hand catch in the end
Yeah.
zone, and then we just show them our practice tape.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
like people are comparing the practice tape of their lives, the ins and outs, the everyday, to other people's one highlight reel, and then
Exactly.
it's so crazy.
And that brings right back to something I want to say earlier when you were speaking about ruts versus graves, Kyle, and how it feels like people are in a grave but they're only in a rut. I think social media is a huge piece of that. That's why I wrote it down. I'm getting better at my not interrupting. I knew it'd come back eventually, but
Huge.
why do you think people are so confused about ruts versus graves when all they're seeing around them is this weird thing where nobody's talking about their ruts, right? Nobody has anything to bounce off because, like you say, everything is the best. You know, the best, most highlighted vision of when you're traveling. People post travel pictures even when they aren't traveling, just to post that to show this area. And then people wonder why we have this big disconnect and people aren't understanding the realities of their situations as clearly as they could be. But whose fault is that? There's so many things working against them, and that's that forgiveness piece that I keep bringing back up. Is once you can understand that, obviously I've been looking at this wrong, but it's not. It's so much. You definitely have to always keep your own piece of accountability in that, and your self accountability. But also, you can give yourself a little bit of forgiveness by understanding the reasons surrounding it. Right? You're looking at Instagram when you wake up, and you're seeing all these highlights of all these people doing it, and then you look at your own life. That's a perfect recipe for a rut to feel like a grave, if I ever heard one, right? That's just it's madness, right? And it all feeds in on itself. There's so many of these issues, and so many of them are so, feel like part of the bigger structure of what issues we're having, right? It's all microcosms and different levels of the same issue almost, right? You just see it at all these different points and how it manifests in different ways, but so much of it is that self-pity and technology kind of overtaking the mental side of what we need to do. And I think that's where we need to really focus our efforts and bringing that back into the conversation along with all these things, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that will bring us to that better place of being able to handle these powerful tools that we are creating, this technology we are creating in an effective way. Whereas it seems like it's just a race to make the most money. We'll think about the consequences after, right? Which was very obvious with social media. They weren't thinking about the consequences. Well, some of them in Silicon Valley, where you can see these tech guys that wrote the actual back end code to hook people in like this. They don't have those things. They knew what they created. They don't do it, but that accountability, that day of reckoning is going to come eventually, right? You can start to see the cracks in it. People aren't very happy with Facebook, aren't very happy with these legacy systems that didn't care about what they were doing at the time, and now we're starting to see that pushback, right? I think that's a very important piece, and it, like I say, it might take a few years for the pendulum to swing back and to realize some of these things because of the pace that we're going,
Yeah.
right? If you think of progress, like if you're in your car, Kyle, the car of progress, and you have a little pendulum on your dash that swings, and you move forward at a little rate, right? Like different rates. Sometimes you're slowing down, sometimes speed up, but it's always been within 5 to 10 kilometers. And that little pendulum, sometimes when you accelerate, if it's a big acceleration that maybe was inventing fire or the wheel, right? That pendulum would swing a little bit backwards as we move forward, and we'd get a little bit out of whack of homeostasis there, but it would relatively settle out very quickly, right?
Yeah.
And then this car is souping up, getting faster, right? And now we have a goddamn Tesla with no reaction time that just shoots forward with technology, with the internet. And this pendulum is wrapped all the way around this stupid thing that we can't take the second to realize how out of homeostasis we are with all these
Yeah.
other aspects that need to be in balance with this car moving forward, right? And that's the issue that I see. We need to unwrap that thing, get it down, realize maybe we didn't upgrade this pendulum. We didn't put systems in place, right? We could build it. It's 2020. We could build a fucking gyroscope that moves with it so that it always stays in homeostasis, right? Our technology is there. I hate hearing this excuse of just laziness all the time. If people, oh, we can't do that. That's not there. It's 20. Look at what we can do. There's ways. We're just not putting the effort to it, right?
Yeah.
If you want to say that something's impossible, you better have taken a crack at it or showed something where you tried, right? Just impossibility for the sake without any effort towards anything else other than that is absolutely ridiculous to me at the age we're in, right? Nothing's impossible. We see that every time we think something's impossible, it's not, because we just haven't taken a crack. And then to know that, and then to just assume things are impossible without putting actual well-rounded, logical plans together to try, what are we even doing at that point, right? And I think that's, like I said, another microcosm of the same issue that we're talking about, all this self-pity. It's easier to feel bad for yourself. It's easier just to say, no, that's impossible. We don't need to do it, right? That's much easier than, investing your time and trying to create these things and move things forward and shift the culture to be allocating the mental capacity towards these areas that need it, really very clearly to me and to a lot of people. And I think that's the wake up that people are seeing that. And now more people are listening to podcasts with these messages moving forward. And that's what's going to start that shift, because it needs to be brought to people, put in front of them so that they can have that opportunity to take that self-actualization and run with it, right? Once the ideas are put in front of you, you can take it and run with it or not. But if it's not put in front of you to see that there is another way, there is another option other than just sitting in self-pity and not moving forward and just kind of trying to enjoy life in the small areas that you can, right? Maybe it's your area of what you enjoy is now narrowed down to getting through your week, so you can have those 4 hours on Friday and 6 hours on Saturday where you're at that right level of fucked up to enjoy yourself, right? And I think that's what a lot of people live through. But to show people there's another way where you can be happy throughout your entire week, right? You can take that 4 hours of what you need to do to expand, and you can expand that out over your entire week if you really want to. And it's not easy, and you have to be accountable, and you have to do all these things, but the rewards are so great, but
For sure. And I think that a perfect example of what you're talking about, we can just look at Mother Nature and the earth throughout this whole COVID situation. I mean, the rapid, talking about now all of a sudden, boom, we got a Tesla, instant feedback, instant acceleration, instant pendulum gets wrapped all the way around. I think it's very similar with the whole world. And, during this period where things have been locked down, I mean, the smog levels, for example, way down, you can see the LA skyline very clearly for the first time in a long time. The canals in Venice, crystal clear, you can see the bottom. And, it's almost like that same thing is needed for us as humans to come back to center, right? It's almost like, what's the word? Like
entropy. Yeah. Like you need just a slowdown, right? Just a reset almost.
Yeah.
And I was thinking this actually last night, Kyle. I was on when you just get into those flow states where I was listening to some really good podcasts that were really changing my mindset, and I just decided to write out this big long essay on a lot of the things we're talking about right now. And what I was saying was, you can see it so clearly of how obvious it is that we need that reset and we need people to slow down. But the these legacy systems haven't been in place that we don't have any time. There's no room for slowdown. Everything is progress. Everything's moving forward. If you're a company, you have to make 10% growth on profit every year. You're failing. If you make the same amount of money you made last year, this year, it's a failure, right? That's what we've set up so that there's no time. There's trillions and trillions of dollars and these huge legacy systems in place to stop anything from ever slowing down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's so clear that we need the slowdown. We need to adjust our priorities and balance out a little bit, and not just towards progress. Progress for progress sake can't be the only thing on our minds. But there's all these people, all the news are against it. All the legacy systems, all the political systems, everything is standing in the way to keep the status quo, because that's how we're built on, right? They don't want any slowdown to this entropy. They don't want even if it's necessary for our long-term progress. Nobody wants to take 5 years of resetting, or I'm throwing 5 years on the long side, but even 6 months of people, slowing down, taking away. We don't need to chase progress this hard. We need to reset and reevaluate. They don't want that at all. So now it becomes this slugfest of these grassroots things popping up, like the Joe Rogans and the Weinstein brothers and the Lex Friedmans of the world, that are trying to send this message of progress is great and we don't need to stand in the way of progress, but we need to do it the right way, and also bring up these other factors. And I think that's what's so important. But they're battling against such a entrenched system, and anytime anybody speaks their mind, anything contrary to the status quo and the story that's being told, they get labeled and they get put away, so nobody listens to them, right? They're either a conspiracy theorist, a racist, there's all these little labels that they slap on so they don't get listened to. But it seems so obvious that, oh no, they're actually speaking the truth. These are the things they need to know, forgiveness, honesty, all these things. But the complete opposite is on the other side on the news. When you look at that, there's no forgiveness. It's attack the other side as much as you can, right? No forgiveness. Forgiveness is not even in their dictionary, right? Yeah. Compassion, there's no compassion. That's not in their dictionary, right? Looking for it, there's none of that. And I think that's what more and more people are waking up to, of, man, is this really what we want to do? I want to have my worldview educated by this thing that's only negative. They only look at the bad sides. There's nothing to balance it out, right? If you want to see the society is at an imbalance between what they're valuing, right? Progress versus human decency, I guess, is not the best way to put it, but you can see it now on the two sides of these people sending this message of compassion, forgiveness, are the other side of the pendulum over here, and then the news are completely over there, right? Society is somewhere in the middle, but it's that battle between the two. But these are just grassroots uprisings, right? Not everyone's a Joe Rogan that's getting 9-figure deals, right? But that gives me huge confidence that message is growing, that people are listening, right? He's more powerful than all these media companies. It goes on the news, he gets 60 times the ratings anybody else does, and more people are listening to someone with reasonability. That gives me a lot of faith. But
that it reminds me, Nick, a lot of what you were saying about our relationship in the introduction of this podcast. Mm-hmm. It's having that ability to, look, let's look at our relationship, right? It's generally speaking, do we see eye to eye? Yes. Are there a couple of things where we might disagree? Also, yes. Yep. But we understand that it doesn't have to be a you or me. It doesn't have to be a this or that. We can work together and say, you know what, you're right, I was wrong. And I appreciate the viewpoint, the perspective that you brought. Mm-hmm. Like you're saying, it's so much of it is like, no, this is what they think, and you can either think this way or that way, right? And if you're over here, I never want to see you again.
Exactly.
We all cohabitate this planet.
Exactly, but that's exactly it. They don't want people to realize that and to be able to talk like that, because that goes against the status quo. They want to keep people fighting, keep people pitted against each other, and that's what they do. That's why they politicize everything. How can you politicize a pandemic? How can that be a right versus left issue? It's a national, it's a worldwide issue. How can that be politicized? But they do it because it pits people against each other, right? Yeah. And that's what they do. When we're busy fighting each other, nobody's busy saying what we're saying on this podcast. There's way more things. I have no time to fight with other people, right? The only time that I want to even discuss it, but that's the issue, Kyle, is when you do that, they want you to slap a label on and not listen to, because progress is made by having the two sides come together and finding a middle ground between the two. That's where real progress is made. But more and more every day, you're not allowed. You're shamed if you try and cross the aisle and go over to the other and have a conversation with them. You're shamed by both sides, right? Nobody wants that, because that breaks down the game, and their entire purpose is to keep the game going, right? But that breaks it down. So there's all these incentives away from people moving forward when it seems so obvious to me and you that that's what's needed, right? And you can see it just in the format. So now, if you take, I've said this before on this podcast, so apologies to this, but if you take the two people with diametrically opposed uh, worldviews and put them together for long form, 3 hours if they sat together, they're going to find some middle ground. There's going to be some areas that they can come together, right? Look at Daryl Davis. He sat down with hundreds of KKK members. He's a black singer and piano player. He's an amazing human being, just intelligent and compassionate. And he's had hundreds of KKK members and Nazi members turn in their robes and change their worldview just in speaking with him and having long form conversations with him and having it's amazing what he can do. He is the microcosm. I know I'm saying microcosm 600 times on this podcast. Apologies, but he is what the world needs to be, right? We need to have that. It doesn't matter how diametrically opposed you are. You can find middle ground and you can show that if you're willing to go into it with compassion and forgiveness and that understanding that this is all taught to them. This isn't who they are as people. People are good, right? That's the basis of it. They may be taught they might have some malware in their systems that are teaching them some wrong things, but that can be corrected if you have a really long term, if you have the ability to talk to them for a couple hours, you can change their mind on those things. But they know that, and they don't want any long form. They want to keep the news 5-minute segments with commercials in between, bring 4 people on at a time so you only get 1 or 2 sentences, because you can never get there, right? And that's what they want. They don't want people to get there. They don't want to have that forgiveness, because that again goes away from the status quo. And that's what I see as the big issue, and what is so important about this, and why I'm so passionate, why I love this so much, because I got to see it. I got to see my worldview change so much when people that come on and like you say, where you're saying it's important to be able to talk to somebody that has different opinions and being okay saying agree to disagree. But I almost want to take it a step further and say it's a necessity to progress is to have that, right? It's not only it's important to have, it's actually a key ingredient to progress is to have that and to come together. And that's why on this podcast I know it seems like at the start here with just who I have to reach out with, it's a lot of people that have a very similar worldview of that I do, but I want people to push back. I love that. That's what I love about listening to podcasts, is having people go on and make really good arguments that are completely against mine and make me change my mind. I love changing my mind. I love being made to change my mind. It's not easy. I'm stubborn as all fuck, but if someone can make a good argument that makes me change my mind, I love it. And then those ones are the ones that I really go around, and ideas that I've held for a long time and haven't really put too much thought into, I'm not out exposing those. But those ones that I thought other ways, just like what I talked about with religion and those kind of things, and throwing them out the door and not giving them any chance. When someone came on and changed my decision with that and really rocked my worldview, I'm way more out there exposing those things, because I have given it. I'm so passionate about it because I've saw the other side, and now I've come to see them. I know the arguments that's going on in your head if you disagree with this. I want to take you. I was there once. I can take you through this progress because I just had it done to me, and I can bring you to the other side. And I think that's what's so important. That's why I want to, as this podcast grows and I can get access to more people, I want to bring people on that are going to push me and do that in real time and force me to relook at some of the things, which is what started this all off at the start of the conversation. I feel like where I first had it was with you, Kyle, because I think going in, I grew up in Slave Lake and you grew up in Calgary, and you grew up with very educated parents. My mom had a master's degree, but my dad was the dominant force in the household, and he was, an electrician, a journeyman electrician that chased his dreams and grew businesses and just took off, and was amazing. But growing up in that small town and having that mindset, I think a lot of my worldviews, I was very stubborn in them, and you were coming in with a very, city versus rural, all these things. There were so many differences, and you were one of those first people that could really come in because we had that opportunity. And I think it's just a matter of, if I would have sat down with anybody with a different worldview, it just happened to be you because we got to spend that kind of time together. But you would show me these good arguments for these things of, a little more, you took me where my pendulum was a lot more to the right. You swung me more to the center a lot. And I feel like that was a really, really huge moment in my own growth, because not only was it good for me at that time, but it was a skill to learn of where you are right now doesn't designate where you're going to be or where you're growing to. It almost has no basis, right? And I think I talked this on one of the first couple of podcasts, but it was a big realization that came right after, maybe in my third year it started, and it was right after we separated, Kyle. But it was this realization of looking back on myself a couple of years ago and just being so disgusted with ugh, like what an idiot you were at that time. Like, what were you even thinking? Like, and I know everything I was thinking, how I got there, but just like I know so much more by now. And then, so at 22, I look back, who was I at 20? That fucking idiot. Like, what a dolt. And then, you know, 24, I look back at 22, man, what an idiot, right? And then, you know, and then at 23, I go into this job and I'm looking back at myself in university. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know about the real world. Now I'm out working and all this stuff. And I look back on that kid now and I'm like, oh, honey, like you didn't know anything, right? And I'm always, but eventually you get to a point where, you know, you never know anything. All this stuff, I'm just trying my best at this time. And a big change in that is looking back on it with forgiveness of, you know, that little boy at 22 years old doing the best he could in university with everything around him, right? You can forgive him for what he was just doing the best he could with what he's given. Yeah, he's better now, but why look back on that and not think about it with love and compassion, right? Just like any other kid that you see on the street, right? I always love that saying, never speak to yourself how you wouldn't speak to a child, right? And I think it's that level of basic human decency and love for yourself that you have to keep. And I struggle with that sometimes. You know, I'm very hard on myself, and I can get into that mindset where I'm calling myself a fucking idiot. I think last time I was trying to record an intro for one of these podcasts, and I just kept, you kept sounding stupid. You have to listen to your own voice, and I'm sitting here yelling at myself, what a fucking idiot I am. You know, you have to take that moment of like, I've done this before. You're doing the best you can. It's not that bad. Forgive yourself. Move forward, right? You've shown this that you're just getting better, and that in a couple of years you'll look back on this moment and you'll say, yeah, you were very correct. You were very astute in that judgment that you didn't know anything, because you didn't know anything. Now you know more, but you're never going to get there, right? It's an unattainable goal, but you want to keep on that mindset so that the only failure that could ever be, if you look at the world like that, is if you went another 2 years and you look back and you're at the same spot, right?
Oh, for sure.
I think every time you can look back 2 years and go, what a fucking idiot, look how far I've come from there. That's a success. That's a win, right? You have to kind of switch your mindset to see it like that, but it shows the progress that you've made. Whereas, I think a lot of people, 5 years can go by and they're doing very much the same thing with the same mindset. And I think that's the issue. That's what people are trying. That's the status quo. That's what all these legacy systems are trying to fight to keep you in that. And that's what I think needs to break out. And people need to know that if you are happy and you are, willing to do it and you've thought about it, that's fine. But if you're just humming along because that's the thing you were told to do, is get a job, get a family, just make sure they have food on the table. And that's exactly it. Even if you hate your job, that's what you're supposed to do. And that's the point of life, is just to, keep it running. But that's not, and there's things you can do. There's other paths to be taken. Right. I just think that those paths have been shut out and quieted and muzzled, for years now, and it's time for that to break loose and for people to start chasing a little bit more of what they want to do, whatever form that takes, right? Whether it's knitting, video games, podcasting, digital design. There's so many things, music, like whatever passion that you find, you can find a way to make money in it. It doesn't have to be, even if it's your passion about music, but you're not a musician, you can get into the industry. You can do things like, there's ways for you to make money if you're willing to do a little bit of work. There's ways you can do it anyway. But if you don't hear that path, if you don't have someone show you that path, you'll never even take that leap because you don't even know it's there, right? It's like an invisible. It's like you're stuck on this island of where you can't see anything. There's a little invisible path back to the shore, but you can't see it, right? Unless somebody walks out on that path to come grab you and walk your hand back across, you never know it's there, right? And you could stay on that island your whole life, right? It's
And I love what you said about the whole 5 year thing. Mm-hmm. It was actually, when I was first getting started in business, I heard one of our senior partners said, if I want you to think about the last 5 years. And he said, if you want the next 5 years to look the same as the last 5 years, perfect. You're doing everything you need to. Yeah. But if not, something needs to change. In order for things to change, things need to change. And that freaks me out. I thought if the next 5 years look the same as the last 5 years, and what I had to do, and this is something that was kind of coming onto my mind as well while you were talking, is I think a big part of it that kind of hinders us, blocks our progress in many situations is ourselves. And it's our ego, right? And
yes.
And I think especially when, we've been talking about politics and things like that. I mean, it's a very A-type male dominated space. And so you get all of these alpha males, if you will, into a room. Everyone's got a big ego, right? And so then it's like, well, it maybe even inside there's pieces of them that agree with what you're saying, but like again, this is almost tying everything together, but I need to appear on the outside for my highlight reel like I'm the man, that
Yeah.
I'm better than you, that I know that my opinion is right.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a trick, Kai. I think you're right on the money there. But for that's what everybody thinks, right? They think I have to be the big one. But for me personally, when I hear somebody say I don't understand, or can you re-explain it to me, I have so much when somebody plays that game, I know everything and looks like I have no respect for those guys, right? And I think when people say I
Yeah.
don't understand, can you re-explain it, and they're willing to be that vulnerability, I respect that so much. And I think a lot of I suspect that other people do too. But that narrative that everyone is showing to you is that's not what's valued. What's valued is looking like you can do all these things, not asking questions. That ego, right? Your ego is being fed into by all these narratives, right? And the ego is a strong foe. It is, probably one of the biggest battle, probably the single biggest battle throughout anybody's entire life, even with that big bowl of problems that you could pull from. Like you said, everyone has problems. If you pull from the bowl of problems, you'd hate it, whatever those problems would be. But I think on top of all that, the battle with the ego is the biggest thing, right? And I think that is a very deeply understood notion by a lot of these legacy, these powers that are trying to keep that status quo. I think they understand that, and they use that as a tool to, you know, play to your ego and make that the most important priority for all these, right? When you watch movies and you watch media, you watch the news, that's what they're telling you is that A type, that don't listen to anyone, don't be vulnerable, don't admit you don't know what you're doing, right? That's what they're trying to say is the narrative. But then you listen to these podcasts with more of a nuanced idea, and they're sending the message of, no, ask questions, be vulnerable, be honest, but work hard, right? That's the other side of it. What they're trying to that hard work and that determination is the piece of it that they're trying to wrap up in the A type, right? That's what they're trying to um, play towards, but that's not really, as a deep down humanity, that's not how we associate ourselves with it. That's what we're being told to associate with it. But it rings more true when people talk about that vulnerability. And I think it rings more true to me in what I value with people. And I think that's changed over the years, but I think it's an important change to value that in people. And I think that's another very important message that needs to be sent, is to value that. Not like with everything, you have to show it in yourself, right? Lead by example. You have to do it yourself, but then you also have to show it and value it. And when somebody is in a business meeting the other day, very, very important one. I'm it sucks. I love all this business stuff, but I just can't talk. I'm sure I'll talk about it in years past, what stuff we're going through. But very important meeting we're at with my dad in there, and at one point he just said, "I don't understand that. Can you re-explain that?" And I was just like, "Thank God, somebody." I get so excited when people do that now, because I do it, and I think it's such an important piece. And now I've started that when I hear that from people, I try to make a point of it to go back to them after, not in the meeting, but after, to say, "Hey, I really like that you said you didn't understand that. I appreciate that. I think we don't do that enough." And I'm trying to spread that, lead by example in my own life, so that people in my direct circle, like you say, that impact you the most, also think like that, right? And then now you're creating what you want to see in the world, right? If you make those around you value what is important to you and help them change from the values you're being fed. If you don't try and instill values in yourself and those around you, you'll take the values that are fed to you, right? And
Yeah.
like we're talking about, that self-pity, all those things, that's what's being valued right now, because that's what's being fed to you. You have to take that self-actualization to instill your own values, not only in yourself and then lead by that, but also in those around you. Because if you have really strong morals and strong values in yourself, but you're surrounded by people that don't, it's not going to take you that far. It's better than nothing, but it's really tough, right? And I think that's what something like this podcast for me is. It's a way to put my values out to those people and try and build that around myself with. If this podcast never goes, I do it for 40 years and it never goes past, the 50 people I know closest to me, that is still a win to me, because if I can help shape the values that they hold, and help open paths that they didn't know were open, and can help better those around me, I'm just going to encircle myself in people that can grow, right? And if that connects with people, that circle will grow, right? And then you'll be surrounding yourself. Maybe it won't be your 50 closest friends that are only listening to this, but maybe it's 1,000 people that think like you, and maybe it's 2,000 or 3,000, right? The limit is only withheld by how much effort I want to put into this, and how dedicated I want to be. And I think that's just an amazing thought, that for years and years, you were kind of withheld to those around you and how they thought, and you weren't really able to change that much. But I think that is changing. We are able to do whatever we want. We can build whatever we want. We can be around whoever we want. We're connected to, right? It used to be back in the day, maybe 50 years ago, whoever was in your town or your city and maybe even your area of the city, right? With before modern transportation, you were pretty withheld to who you could hang around with. You had to really seek those people. Nowadays, it's worldwide. There's people. When I go onto this podcast, I can listen. There's downloads in Asia. There's downloads in Africa. It's so cool to think of that you're never withheld by that circle that you can grow to. If your circle of who's around you isn't up to snuff and doesn't hold the values that you have, there's no excuse, because you have 7 billion people and growing that you could put in within that inner circle, or that inner circle that you do have. You have the power to lead by example and to change them, right? There's no excuses anymore, right? But again, so much easier than to recognize that and make a change than just to self-pity and, oh, my friends are idiots, I got no one to, all my friends just sit and do drugs. I did that. I was very guilty of that. There's points in my life where a lot of my friends were on different paths than me, and I was just feeling bad for myself. Oh, they just party and do drugs, and I got no one hang out, boo-hoo, right? And I could have been making a change. I could have made it a goal of mine to seek out people that were on a different path or had been on that same path, but were at a further point in it where they were past that point, because I don't think that's fair to shoehorn people into what they did at one time into who they are forever, right? I think that's an easy mistake for people to make, but I think that was a lot of my own self-pity, where I could have been doing a lot more work to seek out other people to reconnect, right? At that time, I definitely could have reconnected with you a little stronger, right? Like I have these people in there, but instead of doing that, I just went down that self-pity route like so many other people do, and you can sit in it, right? But it doesn't make any change. So that was because I just sat in it. It was months and months of that, of just, oh, well, I guess this is what life is, right? And didn't make any changes. And then And then this job came up, and that was the big impetus between it. Is now you can see that and it's changed the world. You made a change and it was positive, and you have that taste of, oh, well, if I take a big leap, I can make myself a lot happier, right? And that was essentially what this podcast came out of. It was the exact same thing of, okay, I've kind of leveled out in what I'm happy doing with this, and I think I can take another big leap, and I'm at that point, right? You ride the ups and downs, and you have to get on one of those ups and take that leap. It's hard if you're on a really. I think you can look at it two ways. You can make a big leap off an up or down. And I think this is something that changed me just in this podcast, because I was thinking before this podcast, Kyle, that you can only take the jump on the up. But I think you showed me that the way I look at it, it's always a leap of faith, right? There's a ledge somewhere. Some leaps are bigger than others, right? Everybody's strength's different than others. And pretty much what your strength is dictated by is your willingness to grind, right? And I think I was thinking, right, when you're on that up, it's bringing you closer to that ledge. So that leap is less far, and it's less effort to do. It's a little less scary. But I also think that you have a very good point that on those downs, you have a really strong foundation, right? Because sometimes on those up, you're definitely getting closer, but it's not as concrete, right? You're built up on things. And a lot of times, if you're coming up from a really low bottom and you're just on that rise, it's very ethereal, right? It's almost like riding a cloud up there. You don't have much to kick off. But like you said, when you're on those downs, you have that strong foundation, you have something really strong, you can leap very far and very strong, right? To that point, there's nothing holding you back but fear at that point, right? There's when you're on that up, there's definitely fear, but there's also falling down. You got all this time, and I'm doing pretty good right now. I don't want to take a leap and fuck, I'm now going to fall all the way down there, and I'm already up here, right? There's a lot of both ways. There's issues that come with it, but there's opportunity everywhere. I think that's the beautiful message of that. You don't need to wait for the up. You don't need to wait for the down, right? Like you said, everyone waits for things to be perfect, but there's ways that you can shift your mindset to find positives and opportunities in anything, right? Rock bottom is an opportunity, right? A small upswing, a promotion at work is an opportunity. Everything's an opportunity if you can find a way. You can make anything an opportunity, right? Like Jocko Willink, another perfect example of a David Goggins kind of guy, right? Goes on Joe Rogan, gets a huge following because he's saying some honest truths, And one of his best videos is about a 4-minute video. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I'll send it to you after. It's called Good. Jocko Willink, good. And he said, you know what? Oh, your car broke. Good, right? That's an opportunity to walk and get better, right? This happened. Good, right? And just saving everything that comes at you as good. There's ways to do that. And I think that is a powerful mindset that comes on top of this. And I think that's something that I've been definitely using personally for this podcast, is when things go wrong, it's good. I can get an opportunity. There was a guest. We're supposed to do this Tuesday, this interview, but I was so excited about it, Kyle. I just released the first 3 episodes, I walked into work, and uh, one of the ladies at work said, "Hey, I listened to your podcast. I thought it was really good." And oh, thanks. Really good comment. Felt really good about it. And then the next day, I walk in, she said, "Oh, I listened to another podcast with this guest that was really good, and I thought he'd be good on yours." So I just reached out to him. Here's his email. He said he'd love to hear from you. So I reached out, talked to this guy. He's amazing. I listened to him. Just has all these things I'd like to talk to him about, right? And I was so excited to interview this guy, and something happened where it just felt like he just didn't have time, and he was in kind of a rough service area, and I was so disappointed by it at that time, that it didn't get to happen just because I was so excited for it. But then, like I was saying earlier, all these little things fell into place that if I would have interviewed him on the date that we were supposed to, so many different, I listened to him on a couple different things. I found that he did a TED talk and opened up to all these things that really manifest deeply with like accountability. He was talking about and stuff, and these things that I'm already talking about. And I found probably 20 more different angles that I want to talk to him about. And that if we would have interviewed that day, I would have I already had a good list. I did a lot of research into him, to have that I was really confident the interview would go well. But now I have so much more. And now, I was sad about it, didn't hear from him. Then he got back to me a couple weeks later. I said, sorry, I got the opportunity to go build a hospital up in that. He's working in Africa right now, this spectacular human. I can't wait to record with him.
Yeah.
And he said, not turning off, we'll do it. And we're supposed to do it Tuesday now. And now I get to walk in. I have all these different angles. I'm so much more prepared. I'm so much more excited. I was already excited, but now I'm even more excited. And, when you frame it like that of, oh, this is a setback, but it's good. Now I have more time. So now when I do get, to podcast with them, I'm going to be so much more ready. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's been really powerful and a really powerful mindset to do it, because I think when I first was starting to reach out to guests, it still is. It's very embarrassing. It's asking a lot of people. It's asking for their time, and it was a bit tough. But I think growing that confidence in that of looking at it as a good. Okay, they say no, good. Now that's going to be extra fire for me to get better, to grow to the point where I'm going to have them on, right? And with no hard feelings, just saying, I understand why you didn't want to have me on now, where I'm only reaching a smaller group of people. Well, I'm going to grow this shit so quickly and have it to a size that you're going to beg to come on, right? And that's that framing everything as a positive and as an opportunity is making it so much more enjoyable, right? You're taking the negativity out. I feel like so many of these mindsets of self-pity is just everything's negative, right? If your whole mindset is negative and focusing on the negatives and the bad things in life, and if you can switch that around, it's just as powerful working in reverse. If you can shift everything to be positive and everything to be another way forward, another learning lesson, another step forward, you can go so much further. And I just think that is been such a big thing for me and keeping me excited and keeping that fire burning. But I think that's a good message to everybody. If you're passionate about something, you have to keep it framed in the right way, and you'll be able to go much further than you would if you just kept that status quo self-pity way. If something goes wrong and you cry about it for a couple of days, right, that's what bogs you down. That's what really takes away your momentum. Everything's entropy, everything's momentum. If you let those negative things pull you down, it's really hard to get restarted and keep going, right? If you allow it, feel that pain, feel that disappointment, but take it, don't dwell on it, just take it, switch it around, re-outfit it, and get back going, right? And that's when you don't lose momentum.
Yeah, and it's like Tony Robbins says, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you.
Yeah.
Right. It's the people who win at the highest levels, the people who really achieve, let's call it the world class level, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that it's, a car broke down, shit, okay, right? It's this happened, okay, so where's the positive in it? What is this teaching me? What do I need to know? Maybe your car breaking down, the reality is you are already going to be late for your meeting, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe there were some things that we shouldn't have procrastinated about getting checked out, that sound that we heard 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? And so like what is the lesson in that? And just going back a little bit, we're talking about what kind of drives people and what pushes people, and the whole when you are going for something at the high versus at the low. And it really got me thinking about there's really two places that motivation comes from for humans. And one of them is a place of what we're going for, what we're dreaming of, what we're aspiring to be and do. And the other one is the things that we don't want, right? The fear. Right. The places that we don't want to remain. If I keep doing what I'm doing, then this is what I'm going to get. And, I think that's something for me and my experiences, the places that I worked, the different environments I was involved in, as well as being at rock bottom for that period of time, just really allowed me to see, okay, this is why I need to figure it out. This is why I need to keep growing, right? I needed to go through that time because up to then, life had been easy for me. I always got by on talent. I never had to work for anything. And so those things, and just like you're saying, it would have been easy to be like, oh, poor me. It's nobody else is dealing with these things. And it's, I was born this way and I have deficiencies, right? No, I firmly believe, Nick, that everyone has inside of them what it takes to be successful.
I
And
agree.
defining success is like, that's up to them. What successful means to them. I think everybody has it within them. It's just cultivating that, right? It's figuring out what gets us going, why we want to do it, getting clear, making a plan and getting after it. But
Yeah, definitely. And actually, it's funny to hear you say that. But the first question I had written down on my list, I mean, I just had some questions. I knew we'd kind of go off on tangents like we do. We always have good conversations, so I wasn't too worried about it. But I definitely have a kind of a fallback. But it's funny to hear you say that because my first question was going to be, what drives you? Just because I got to see so many different levels of drive from you in different areas. But then I also got to see things where, like, maybe there should have been drive like school where just for whatever reason it didn't get you up in the morning and you didn't give a fuck about it and it just wasn't for you. But I was just curious how much thought you put into, do you know what different aspects of that can turn that on or turn that off? Because I feel like for me, I definitely have that in myself where some things turn me on more than others and get me excited. Like this podcast, it fires me up like almost nothing I've ever seen before and gets me really going. um, but even when I was in school, I didn't really like it, but I still had that base level of, okay, this isn't for me, but I have to access that thing that I know I have within me when things excite me, but I have to turn that on for here just because I need to get by. And that was always what I saw of it. And I would use that skill for when it excited me, I could turn it on and it was easy. And when it didn't excite me, I'd have to force myself and it sucked, but I'd still be able to bring the results out because of that, right? Or in spite of that. But I was just wondering for yourself, with these different things like the gym and with school and now with World Financial Group with the bar industry, with all those points of information now and all that points of data, have you found in yourself, have you done the deep work to recognize what it is specifically that gets you going like that?
yeah, I think that, I mean, there's two sides of it. One, with the gym, for example, I think it's an identity thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, our identity is like the thermostat for our life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what do I mean by that? When a room is too cold, then it will heat it up. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, when a room is too hot, it's going to cool it down. And so, if you start to win at a level higher than your identity, then you'll find a way to mess it up. For example, lottery winners, right? They
Right.
they don't have the identity of someone that has $50 million. And so
Mm-hmm.
where do they end up? Back where their identity brings them.
Yeah.
But the same is true on the flip side, right? And so I think the gym for me is just some of it goes back to just being that A type male. A lot of it comes down to really control, and that's what ties into the second part. And what what I what really gets me going, I mean, you probably know, I've always had a big dream for my life. I've always been a
Yeah.
dreamer. I've always wanted it all,
Yeah.
right? Um,
And I love that in you. That was, I think, one of the biggest things that drew me to you because I'm very much the same way. And I love, and I never, and there's always seems to be a silly taboo about when people do want to be a dreamer. I fucking love it. I get so juiced up listening to other people and trying to talk with them about okay, what steps can we take? Is that your dream? Okay, what is the first step? What can we do today to get that going? Right. I love that shit. Sorry,
yeah.
keep going.
No, that's okay. I love this. And what really motivated me when I was at rock bottom is I knew what I wanted. I craved that control. I wanted the freedom. I wanted to be able to, if I wanted a nice dinner, I could go and I could just order
Mhm.
what I wanted, not making a decision based on the cost, right? Or even things like with us, wanting to be able to hang out, but I couldn't. Why? Because I had no control financially.
Mhm.
And so it showed me all of the things. This is what I wanted and this is where I was, and I
Mhm.
knew that if I kept operating on the same path I would never get here. And
Right.
so that's really what pushed me to get going in the beginning. And then as you go, the things that you want, like you probably are realizing too, it evolves,
It,
right?
it
Right, some of the things will always be there, but you'll find, there's this and there's this. And yes, of course I want to do it for my family, and of
Mhm.
course I want to have major contribution, and but then there's this other thing, right?
Mhm. And I think, and this is something I was actually talking to somebody else about, but I think as we proceed through life and have different levels and new jobs and stuff, we also have a basic understanding, some people more than others, of what it takes to keep their mental health um, adequately topped up, right? I like, my favorite metaphor for it is your cup, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
things in life that you empty your cup, right? You're giving to other people, you're giving to your job, you're giving to your spouse, to your kids, to everything. You're emptying your cup, and you have to find things that fill your own cup, right? And
Yeah.
that can be going for a walk, and can be watching a movie, and I think a lot of people kind of balance out into that homeostasis of, they know what it takes to keep themselves happy, and they can kind of get that, and they can ride that for a couple of years, like you say, where work only takes this much out of it, but everything's constantly in flux. And those things that you do, maybe your walks or your meditation or whatever it is that helps you out, watching a movie, anything, partying. Sometimes partying is that for people, right? It sometimes can be unhealthy, but whatever it is, where I'm going with this is it's always changing. And I think lots of people, what scares them is nothing's changed in their life over the last couple years, but the things that were filling them up isn't filling them up the same way. And some things that only took maybe a quarter cup are now taking a half cup. You know what I'm saying? Just everything's always in flux. Your work is going to take less and more from you over time. Your family, every aspect, things are moving so quickly. People are so surprised when the things that worked for them 2 years ago aren't working for them anymore. And you have to always be rechecking in with yourself to find out what is uh, what is satisfying you. I think that was definitely for myself when I came into this role. I was on cloud nine. I was building this. I was learning things so fast. I was, a 23-year-old in a role that, maybe it's not traditionally someone of that age. And I was really on cloud nine. I was happy and all this, and it was really, filling my cup back up. Even though I was giving out so much, it was so rewarding that I was getting so much out of it. And nothing much had changed, but I found myself not being refilled at the same point. I was still doing all the same things. My own mental health. I would, take a weekend to myself and not do anything. I would, watch movies. I'd always buy my UFC fights on it, even though I would know how to stream them and they'd be bad quality. But that was just a little way I'd treat myself. I'd spend the $60 because I love the sport, and I'd watch the pay-per-views. I have all these little things that I know help me, but they weren't
Mm-hmm.
they weren't doing the trick anymore.
Right.
And it took me a while and some introspection to realize that, and to realize, oh, I thought I had it figured out. You never have it figured out. Things are changing, right? You have to keep checking in with yourself. And that's what kind of, more or less, it took a few different directions before I landed on the podcast. That was what I wanted to do. And I think a lot of that was just fear, and I always knew that this is what I really wanted to do, but I was so scared of it because of that knowledge,
Right.
that I was, and like you say, almost with identity of, I didn't think I deserved it. And who am I to want people to listen to me? And I think that held me back for a long time. And I was thinking of it in different ways. I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll start streaming video games. That's kind of, I'd still be on. I'd still have some sort of crowd maybe. And I would sit there and I would daydream these different ways I would luck into having a podcast. Like I'd, stop a bank robbery and get on the news and just be like, oh, I'm starting a podcast, and just have an instant fame, because I didn't want to put in the hard work, and I didn't want to have the fear of failure, right? If I was looking for all these different ways that I could luck into it, so that I didn't have to take that first big leap of the scary part, and I could jump right into the success of it, which never works anyway. I don't know why people think that way, because there's nothing really ever that works out that way in life. There's no, there's no track, there's no path to that, of people just lucking into stuff. You rarely ever see that. It's so small percentage of what really happens. I don't know why I was thinking that way, but I was. And it took myself to come to that realization of, no, if you want this, you're gonna have to grind it. You're gonna have to buy the shit, start it, order it. Make sure you do a couple podcasts a week. Don't just do it, once a month or fall off for 3 weeks. No, you have to dedicate yourself to this, and you have to keep. And if you do, you will get better. And it may suck at the start, because that's every podcast I ever listened to. They always say that, oh, the first 50 were terrible. Like, I wish I would have started earlier, because I've gotten so much better now. But what if I would have started 4 years before that, right? And I kept hearing that with all these people. All these comedians would say about comedy, I wish I started earlier. All these people that are, I say comedy because that's my, my main thing that I watch, and I love comedians. I love stand up. I love podcasts with comedians. I just think they're the most concentrated. It's the most concentrated humor that you can find in all these different ways, right? And they have all these different outlets now with technology of bringing them in. But I think this goes for anybody that is chasing a dream. Where was I even going with that? I lost my train of thought down it. Damn it. I had a really important point with it. Going out, podcasts, chasing your dreams. Oh, I think it's anything, right? I think that's anyone that's chasing a dream, they all say, I wish I would have started earlier, because if it's something you're going to stick out and that you're going to enjoy, and if you have the confidence that it's going to be something that rewards you for your entire life and that you'll always want to keep getting better at it, and there's no cap on it, like stand up, like hockey, like sports, there's no real cap. You can always get better at it, and it's always going to give back to you. So you can make that connection in your head that you want to dedicate that time. There's always going to be a reward for it, right? And the more you put in, the more you get out of it. And it's that meritocracy that I think everybody's looking for in life in different areas. They want something to be just that simple, right? There's so many things that are complicated. All they want is something that's simple, right? I put in effort, I get out reward, right? And it's so hard to find that. But I think it's because people are so scared of doing it where it really counts. I think a lot of people know what they would really like to do, but they're so scared of it, they find other places to do it, right? They might know that they want to start their own gym, and that's their real passion. But it's a lot easier just to not deal with that fear and that accountability and that fear of failure, and just stick with the job that they have, right? And I think that is what that's that big difference. And along with that message of chasing your dream and having that be okay, you have to keep that level of knowledge of the grind, and what you're keeping that knowledge of what the grind is giving you at each point of the way, right? You're not grinding for grinding's sake. It's not that feeling of grinding, I think, is scary to people because they've never grinded for something that they love. Grinding it's not good, it's not bad, right? But when you're grinding, hauling cement sacks, that grinding isn't very fun. There's not much reward with it, right? That's grind for grinding's sake. That's grinding for money, right? And grinding for money to me is grinding for the grind's sake.
Yeah.
In essence, really, like if that's all you're getting out of it, then it is.
Hey Dan, I'm recording a podcast. Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, good, brother. That happens. What was I saying? I lost that.
Grinding for grinding's sake, but
oh yeah, and I think that is that's a huge step to having people make that realization, and all it takes is just getting some other reward out of that grind, right? And showing them a positive outlook on grind, because I think from the time we're little, where you're kind of thrown into school and you have to grind for grind's sake at school, right? You're not told. They're never along the way they're telling you what you're going to get out of this and what this knowledge is going to do and how, right? And I've been listening to that on a couple of podcasts. They say of these really high level teachers that talk about teaching as an art, and it's so much about getting them to buy into what they're going to get out of this. If you just tell them you have to learn this math because you have to learn it, and not give you any reasons where you're going to use it, none of it, nobody's going to buy in, right? Same with biology, same with all these things. If you can show people examples of reward for that grind that are rewarding on a really deep, meaningful level, like you would if you were chasing something you really cared about, as soon as you get a taste of it, like, again, very similar to what I was saying earlier, just getting a taste of your own human potential. It's getting a taste of that other path, right? If I put this work in and I got a lot of reward out on a deeper level than I've ever felt by money, right? And eventually, if you do that, the money will come, right? You will find ways to transition that success into wealth and into financial success, whether it's in direct ways or indirect ways. There is a path forward, but it's so hard to get to that point if you've never had an opportunity to try and grind for something other than just the grind's sake, or for money's sake, or because that's what you were told to do. And that's just the path that it seems like from the day you ever were able to talk, that's what you're being told, that's the path you have to follow, right? And I think that's what getting onto your own path and being able to grind once you're on your own path is such a fulfilling experience. And I think that's what people don't understand, because here's a perfect way to bring this back. So growing up, I always heard my dad say, I love going to work. And I thought, what? Like, I will never, ever enjoy going to work, right? And I think that is so obvious to me now that you will never be able to understand that fully until you've done something you loved enough and gotten reward out of it. I think monetary reward is great, but if you can do it before the monetary reward and just do it because you love it, I think that's the same thing, right? And it's so cliche. There's all these sayings, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, and all that stuff. And they're all cliche, but they're very true, right? And I think that people just hear them but they hear them and goes one ear out the other because they've never experienced it. And that was very same with me. I remember thinking to myself, I will never enjoy going to work, but something like this kind of work, but it doesn't feel like work. I enjoy it. I've been having a great time for the last hour, whatever we've been doing here, right? And that's what is so amazing to me, to see that. And it's just an allegory for whatever it is, right? If you could spend your time knitting or whatever your passion is, you'll never feel that way. And I just think that is so important, and that message needs to be spread to people to be able to see what you can achieve if you are opening yourself up to that failure, right? That's the biggest piece. If you allow yourself to chase something and be willing to fail, you'll get so much farther than just following that status quo. You're very capped with what you can do if that's your only way forward.
Well, not only that, but to take it one step further, there's a guy named Simon Sinek,
Yeah.
and right, he has a book, Start with Why, and that's what he talks about. It's whether it's sometimes there are things that we do that we enjoy that if we could do that every single hour of every day, we would be on cloud nine all the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not a reality, and
Right.
so then how do we put ourselves in the mind space and the mindset to push ourselves through the things that we don't want to do? And he talks about it all comes back to our why, right? Understanding that, well, I have to do this right now. Do I want to do it? No. Even with me, with the business that I'm building right now, are there times when I don't want to go to work? Of course. Are there times when I don't want to do anything? Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
But when I remind myself why I need to do this today, and oh, that's right, because 5 years from now, right, when I need some control, and who knows what the reason is. And that's the crazy thing. I don't even know exactly why, but hey, maybe 5 years from now, right, my unborn child is going to have something that, who knows, and maybe it's not something like a health concern, or maybe it's their Christmas recital that I don't want to have to ask another grown man or woman for time off. And so that's why today I got to get shit done. I got to go to work. It's knowing why you're actually doing it long term.
You're speaking to my soul right now, Kyle. That is exactly it, right? And knowing that you don't have to be accountable to anybody, right? And you can do it in a way that makes you happy. Not it's that difference between right doing things that make you unhappy. Oh, I think I can't even expand on that any better than you just said it. But that is exactly on the money, Kyle. That is perfect. That accountability, that was definitely a huge driver for myself too. I wanted to be in a role where if I want to. If I needed an hour off just for my own, even if you don't have a good read, even if there's no recital, even if you're just sitting that day and you're in a bad spot and having a bad day and you just need an hour to go sit and watch traffic go by on the highway and just think for an hour, you have that, right? Just to never, even if you don't have a good excuse, to never need a good excuse, to have the freedom to do whatever you want at any point, right? I think that is exactly what drives me as well. And that was always something that when people would ask me what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be a businessman because that's what I saw. And that's what I think I appreciated with my dad so much is he worked really hard, but he had that. He didn't ever really, I mean, everybody has somebody to account to and stuff, but within your own world, what degree of freedom you can bring yourself to within that game. Nobody's ever 100% free, right? And I think unless you sit in the mountains somewhere in Tibet and throw on the robes, I think that's probably the only place you'll ever get to that point where you're happy all the time, right? That's the key. But if you can make your degree of freedom within your own world to a point that makes you happy, I think that is it. And not letting that be caged by what is standard, right? You look around and maybe the degrees of freedom you see with the standard paths aren't, and nothing on that path is my standard. That they all have to. I would have to ask for time off at all these paths, like all these traditional ways that you're bringing me down. So that doesn't seem to match up with me. What else can I do? What can I change my why to make sure that I'm doing something right, or just establishing that why in yourself to know that those paths aren't the path that you want to take, right? That is what that freedom is a huge driver. And I think maybe I think a lot of the people I respect, that is the driver with a lot of them. And I think that's something that maybe it doesn't get said enough, because I think that's definitely a huge piece of it. Kyle, I think you nailed it right on the head. That is awesome. Oh, this is why I do this podcast. I love that feeling of when someone says something to you that's so profound, and you almost the implications are flooding in so fast of all the different aspects that you can't even bring the words to the surface of all the different ones at the same time. That's what I love. That's what I love when I'd be listening to podcasts and I'd have to hit pause on the podcast because I just need some time just to process what I just heard. That is what I love. And just the thought of, if I can ever do that for somebody else with this podcast, if something me and you can say on this can have somebody have to stop that and just think of all the different implications in their life, that's just the best, right? It's like when you watch a good movie and you call somebody and you say, watch this movie, and they take it right away and they watch it and you get that instant feedback. So I'm like, yes, I enjoyed this so much and I'm so glad I got to bring it to you, and now you get to enjoy it too. I think that's the real basis and the real soul of what this podcast is. And and what I want to bring it to, right? Maybe I'm not there yet. Maybe still have a long way to go to get it to that point where I can have that much of a connection with somebody to bring them to that point. But eventually I want to get there, right? And it doesn't mean I have to do that for 50,000 people, change the world for a million people. Just one person. You could do that for one person and change just slightly the path that they're on. That's amazing, right? And I think that's what gets me so excited about this. But oh man, just and to know that is that's another big piece of my why, that right there, right? And I think that is keeping that in the forefront of my mind. And I keep having to say this to people always trying to help with the podcast. Hey, get this guy on, then you get access to this whole group. And it's just, that's not what it's about. I have to keep it. It's just, I'm doing this because it's something I love and I want to do it how I want it with the people I want. And just, if it's successful come, money will come if it's there for it. And if it is a good product and it does speak to people. But if you try to make money or be famous, it won't speak. It could still speak to people, but it won't speak to the right people. It won't be who you're going for, right? You have to keep the priorities in order. And I know I'm so lucky and have the freedom with all those other things I said, with having great parents, great support system to be able to do all that. I am extremely grateful for all of those things that let me bring this. But maybe there's, maybe that's what I need to be. With all things happen for a reason. Maybe I needed all that to be able to do this, to be able to take this big leap, to get to that point, to be able to help people, right? Maybe that's all it is. Maybe I've been wondering my whole life, why am I so lucky? Why do I have this and nobody else does? Well, maybe it's because I am in some way have the ability to bring other things forward to people, whether it's knowledge, whether it's mindsets, whether it's information of just having cool people on that can tell them and help them learn. Any of that, maybe that's why it all happens, right? If all these weird things are happening for a reason and all these things are falling into place, maybe I just had never tapped into it before, and it's been happening my whole life. And ever since the day you were born, you're saying that. But like you said, I think everybody has that, right? Yeah. Maybe not everybody is as lucky as me in that certain sense, or maybe they're lucky in other ways, and they just have to figure out in what ways are they lucky, and in what ways do they connect with people, or what ways can they make a difference. And if they really start to pursue that, things will start to fall into place more, and they'll be able to tap into that more. But I definitely think everybody has that within themselves, and how much effort they put towards being successful. Success is in everyone. I love when you said that. Success is in everyone. It's to the degree that you want to pursue it is the degree that how far you'll make it along that path, whatever path that is, right? You'll see that even the traditional path, you still see the same thing, right? Like even if you don't chase your dreams, if you grind and work hard, even on a traditional path, that's what's going to control how far you make it on that path, right? Regardless of if it's the path that's going to make you the happiest, if it's the path that you're on and you do it, if you try hard and you put those things in place and you really strive for it, you can get there, right? And that's just so beautiful to me, with everything being so confusing and everyone wants something simple of just, like I said, effort to reward. That's what it is in everything. It is in everything. It's just all convoluted and trying to tell you what it's not, right?
If you want it bad enough, we'll figure out how to get it done.
Exactly. So, I love where this is going. I was so excited to get you on. That's why I kept pressuring you. I know I've been kind of bugging you over the last couple of weeks to get on here, but I knew that we'd go on all these different tangents. But I do kind of want to go back just because I feel like I've talked all this time. But when you were doing that stuff at the bar, then I just want to kind of follow the story into what you're in so we can get into WFG a little bit. But so you left school after second year. You had kind of thought maybe you were going to come back, but then you got into the bar system. Then you hooked up with Red Bull, I think, and you were doing stuff with them for a bit.
Yeah.
And then at what point, when did you first hear about Wealth Financial Group? How did that fall into your life, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, when I had found a way to move from doing security at a bar, right, checking people's IDs, responding to fight calls, responding to the call to the washroom for the person that had a few too many, all of these kinds of things. When I had found a way to start to transition out of that, and I found Red Bull, to be honest, at first I thought I had made it. I was 21 years old. I mean, now I was making 60 grand a year, salary, benefits, time off. I mean, I thought Red Bull's a pretty cool company. They do some cool things, all of those kinds of things. But what I really started to find is that I was just a number. And right. I knew that I wouldn't be able to accomplish my goals and dreams if I stayed there. And the way that I was introduced to World Financial Group was actually through a guy that I used to work with. He literally just put a post out saying that he worked with the company, that his office was expanding. They were looking for some good people, and to message him if you were interested. And so I sent him a message. I mean, I had kind of seen, in the background posts here and there of different things he was doing and different titles he was achieving, and different recognition. He was going on trips. I mean, went to Cabo, went to St. Martin's, and in the caption it was like everything paid for. And to be honest, when I first, and you might ask about this, I might be jumping the gun a bit, but when I first talked to him, I was super skeptical.
That's what I was going to ask. What fears? That was exactly what I was going. I think you kind of already predicted, but what were your fears at the start? Because I know definitely when I first saw you get into it, I had a couple questions that I needed to have a couple hour-long conversations with you about on the phone that I wanted cleared up before I. Not that you needed my blessing, but before I gave it to you, anyways, even though you didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, what going into that? What were you thinking? What were you worried about?
Just full transparency. The first meeting that I had, I basically grilled the guy for 2.5 hours about. Seriously, I
know. I can picture exactly that conversation, because that was my thing, Kyle. Honestly, is, man, like, and that was what gave me. I had so many of these same concerns, but I knew you so well, and I had so much faith in you as a person, and the brain that's in your noggin. Like I said, well, Kyle's not an idiot. I know he would be already have asked all these questions. That's why I was willing to have you on, because I know every question that I'll probably ask you on this podcast as we get further into this is probably a question that you ask them. So I figured a better way to do it, instead of me asking you what you think of it now, is probably what did you think when you went through it. So yeah, so what kind of questions were you asking?
Yeah, I mean, I was asking, if this was some kind of scheme, right? I asked if it was a pyramid. I asked all of the questions. Seriously. So now, I mean, it's cool, because now when someone has those same questions, those same concerns, I can let them know, and genuinely and legitimately, I know how you may feel, right? I literally felt the same exact way. But what I started to find is, in the beginning, the thing that really got me to take a further look was just stories. The biggest one is Steve's. I mean, he comes from an entrepreneurial family, a construction family in Calgary, and did well. He was the oldest son, and so his family, right, was kind of grooming him to take over the business. He went to U of A as well, actually. And when he had been working at Earl's since he was 14, and so he had worked his way up there, and they offered him a general manager contract. He was 23 years old for 6 figures. He turned that down. He had the opportunity to take over his family business, turned that down, got started with this company, and through the platform at that point, I mean, doing very well, on his way to 7 figures. But I just thought, my first thought was, if someone like that, similar work experiences in terms of being in the restaurant bar industry, having the opportunity with the family business, and then doing this and having the success that he was having, I thought, you know what, worst case scenario, if I get started, it'll be easier for me to poke holes from the inside.
Yeah, exactly. And that's yeah.
That was what got me started.
Yeah. So then, just taking it back a step just one step there. When you first went to that first meeting and you were grilling that guy, how satisfied were you with the answers at that time? And then when you answer those questions, do you answer them in the same way as they were answered to you? Or do you think you have your own mindset on kind of some of the questions that you had once you got into it a little further? Because I have a lot of faith in you, per se, and I think that the way you would answer those questions would probably be more accurate than how he would. And just maybe I'm wondering if there's any differences there.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, what I started to realize at the time was that, firstly, a person, but before they can go and be fully operational, I mean, they have to get fully licensed. Right. It's government licensing. It's not some sort of World Financial Group license. I mean,
so what kind of license are you getting?
Yeah, so the first one that you go through is your Harmonized Life License Qualification Program, the HLLQP. That's a standard insurance license. And then there's also the mutual funds license, right? Your securities license.
Right.
And I mean, that's, governed by all the security commissions in Canada, by the Mutual Fund Dealers Association.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first thing. And then the second thing that I started to see is just the companies that we were in business with,
Right.
right? It's, all of these huge household names. I mean, super high net worth investment firms down to banks, which are everyday household names, to these massive insurance companies, top 10 largest insurance companies in Canada, all of those kinds of things. And I just thought, okay, to be honest, I still wasn't fully convinced, but
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, you know what? There's definitely something here. And I was starting to hear more and more stories of people from different backgrounds. I mean, accountants from KPMG, for example, that now are with the firm and making multiple six figures, winning at a high level. People that were government employees, people that were, I mean, you name it, engineers, a guy that had a construction business before that sold out of that to come and do this,
Mm-hmm.
all of it. And so I just thought, you know, if these people are having that level of success, why not me?
Right. Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. I think that was a lot of what I heard the first time I called you when you were first getting into it. Was that was the first thing you told me, was the big businesses that were around it. But I guess I'm assuming you asked the specific question of that guy: how is this not a pyramid scheme? And what was his answer to you? And how did you feel about that answer?
Yeah, I don't remember
Yeah, maybe
exactly
you don't
what.
remember, but maybe then how would you answer that question now that you have the knowledge yourself?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, when someone's curious about the structure of our business model,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess is really what the question is, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we have an agency model very similar to companies like Remax and Century 21,
Right.
right?
And
And
maybe,
so,
maybe just the people that don't know Remax and Century 21, maybe just give a little insight to on what format they
yeah,
run.
yeah. So, when you become a realtor, say you want to work with Remax, you go. I mean, it'll cost you $5,000 to $7,000 to get licensed and to hang your license with Remax, and then
Mhm.
you know basically over with Remax, and this isn't exactly how it works in terms of fees and
Right.
stuff like that
Yeah.
with us. But I mean, with Remax, you go, you pay $1,000 a month to be able to wear that name and you're self-employed. And so you can go. I mean, there's no salary as a realtor, which most people are aware of. It's all commission, right? You sell
Mhm.
a home, you get paid for doing that. And every office is independently owned and operated.
Right.
So right. So if you were to get into real estate, for example, Nick, and you became really good at it, and now
Mhm.
you decide you want to scale, well,
Start my own
you only got
branch.
24 hours in your day.
Mm-hmm.
And so what some people do that want to take it to the next level, look, some people are fine making 100, 150, 200, 250 grand a year. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes people want to go for 500,000, a million, two, five, 10. And so then they open an office, they still wear the Remax name, but as the head agent of that office, they earn a small percentage of every sale that all the realtors that are plugging into their office make,
Mm-hmm. Right. And
right?
then, right. So yeah. Sorry.
And
So
so
then
so
that's
same
very
with
similar to
us.
yours. Yeah.
Yeah. So with us, hey, there's a lot of people that are just self-employed. They don't build teams, right? They go, they help clients make and save more money, become more tax efficient, get out of debt faster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool these days. I mean, we can do it all virtually, kind of like we are right now.
Yeah.
But for some people, just like I talked about that control that I crave, I know the only way to really do that is to create truly passive and residual income.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the way we do that is just the way that we also get paid residually on the self-employed side, but to really scale and duplicate is, hey, I got to go teach some people how to do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
then I go, right, you have your own office, you build that just like you can in real estate, and that's when this thing really starts rolling.
Mm-hmm. And I guess just to insert there, I guess people always. I don't think people really understand the difference between all the different kind of schemes, pyramid schemes, Ponzi schemes, all those kind of things. And I think they know a little bit about them, and then when things kind of match up, a couple things that line up with it, I think you could make the same argument with Remax of kind of what they're doing. But the difference between a Remax and why they're allowed, because pyramid schemes are illegal and they're not allowed to function, is because they don't actually sell anything. right? You need to actually be selling something and actually have money creation and revenues for it not to be a pyramid scheme, right? You can still have that levels where it's multi-leveled and you have people that work with us and have small percentages, right? That is not the actual market. It's when you do that where that is your only business, is the only way you make money is to bring more people in, right? And I think that's the big separation. So I guess where my next question would be is, how do you guys make money? What do you guys sell? I know you've explained a little bit about it, so I know there's multiple different ways that you guys do, but just I think that would be my first step if I wanted my first thing, if I was trying to figure out if something was a triangle scheme, a pyramid scheme or not. I would my first question, okay, how do you make money? So what are the different ways that you guys bring in money?
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, firstly, we don't get paid anything on the recruiting side of things, like zero,
Okay.
absolutely nothing. The only time that we get paid is when we actually put a plan in place for a family or an individual or a business as well. And basically, what we do is, we take a snapshot of the whole picture. See, most people have maybe an investment person, an insurance person, a mortgage broker, maybe their aunt's friend that works at the bank branch, right?
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
but most of the time, I mean, do we think that those people are communicating with each other?
No, they don't want
No,
that. It's not in their benefit for them to communicate with each other.
that's right. And so we got this team of people that's trying to put together this puzzle of our life, of our financial future, and they don't know what everyone else is doing with all the other pieces. And so you can imagine a lot of times how people's puzzle ends up looking. And so we take a look at all the different areas, and once we show some strategies, focusing more on the education and awareness of showing people different options and opportunities that are available, then we're partnered with the companies that we can actually put those things into place with. And then we get paid just like a mortgage broker. So we're not getting paid directly by our clients through consultation fees or anything like that. But when we match someone up with the company that fits for their needs, then that company will pay us.
Right. So then, just to make sure I have it correct, so say I was coming to you, I was interested in what you guys had to offer. You would, I'm assuming, ask me who I'm investing with, who my mortgage is through, all those things, and then you kind of look at how happy I am with all of those, where you might be able to give them a better deal in all of those areas, and just try and get them signed up on, right? They may only be willing to upgrade two of their plan. Maybe they want to look at taking their investment out and transferring it to you guys, and maybe their insurance through you guys, but they don't have, maybe they're happy with where their mortgage is, they're happy. I can't remember some of the other ones you said, but you just kind of take that as a whole. If they were willing, you could do top to bottom everything they wanted just through you guys, all consolidated, or you could just do one or two pieces of it, right? And then once they commit to that, right? Say it was an investment. Say they invested $1,000 with you. You might get a small percentage of the returns that they make on that $1,000, or is it just on the amount that itself? Like, what is the actual transaction way of like percentages? Is it on revenue? Is it on dollar amount? What is it?
Yeah, I mean it's all related to the amount of basically money that company is going to be receiving over the time period from the client, right? So we get paid all up front, but a big part of it as well is just everyone has this idea, this notion that one day they want to retire. But there's also this kind of idea that, well, I can keep, living for today, and one day the retirement fairy is just going to come at 65 and I'm going to be in retirement.
Right.
No one really knows what it takes.
No.
People don't understand that, if you want to have a comfortable retirement, you're going to need to save probably $1,000 a month for 40 years, or you're going to need a business that's paying you passively. There's really no other middle ground. Maybe you have real estate that's paying you passively, but you can clump that in with business, right? That's paying you passively. It's either you got to save a big bag of cash, or you got to have an asset that's paying you.
Right.
And a lot of people are just kind of going through the motions, right? $3,000 in, $3,000 out, $3,000 in, $3,000 out. And yeah, so that's a big area that we really focus on, is identifying what people's goals are, and then back engineering the plan to get them there. Then when we put that plan in place, maybe with 3 different companies, those 3 different companies will compensate us. And, as a brand new licensed training associate, the average qualified family will pay about $1,300 of upfront commission, and as a senior broker, that same family would pay 3,300.
Wow. So if you're good at your job, you can convince people that this is a good plan. So I guess the way I would see it is your goal is to help them be prepared for retirement, or maybe not retirement, but be prepared for whatever it is they want to do. So the first step you say would be to establish their goal. A lot of people probably say retirement, but there could be other ways, right? Like
For
they
sure.
could have other goals in mind. Maybe it's a startup of something they need to make money towards. Then you back engineer that. And then you're saying that the two different ways they can do is to invest and save, which would be, I guess, those couple paths that we just discussed, or have income that's passive, and that would be, I guess, trying to recruit them on to come do what you do so they can pass and make money themselves. That'd be the two different angles. Either bring them on to bring them onto your team. So then I guess for you, my question would be, trying to insert myself, if I was in that position, I'd be looking for the best people, just because I'm so picky with the people that are around, and I need a certain level of capability if I was going to get into business with someone like that. What makes you decide between, if you were talking to somebody, if they would be a better fit for just investing with you, or actually trying to bring them onto your team? What are you looking for in people to make that decision? Because I feel like that would be a huge shift in how that meeting would go, and what your goals with that person would be, and where you want to bring them would be. I feel like that'd be one of the biggest things you have to figure out. So what for you, what do you look for?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I mean, there's really two parts to it. One is first just sharing the information, right? And from there, the person that I'm talking to is going to establish for themselves, whether they're happy with the current path that they're on.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people, like yourself, for example, that are satisfied. You like what you do, right? You have a good income, you have control, you can see yourself doing what you're doing for the next 30 years. That's awesome. We'll just simply help people like that on the client side.
Yeah.
And when it comes to actually showing the plan, the cool part is it's just numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I'm not trying to use any high pressure sales tactics or anything like that. I mean, if I showed you something, Nick, where there was, let's say you could earn an additional 4, 5, 600,000 into your retirement account, and we also showed you how you could access that money tax free in retirement instead of having to pay 30, 40% to the government.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's not really much for me to sell you on, right? Either
Yeah.
it's something that you like, or you're not interested. Okay, no
Right.
problem.
So far you've been working for WFG for how long now?
About 3.5 years now.
Okay, so what kind of percentage split would you think be in determining whether somebody is happy with what they're doing and just need to and you just be looking to help them invest, and people that are unhappy, you'd be looking to bring on and maybe change what they're doing to help them pursue it in that other way of coming onto the team? What breakdown do you think that would come to in the people you sit down with?
That's a really interesting question, and I think that this is going to tie back into a lot of the things that we've been talking about too.
Mhm.
I think that most people are dissatisfied with what they do right now,
That would be my guess too.
right? I think most people are looking for more. Most people want to have more contribution. Most people want to feel like they're a part of something. More people want to feel like they're actually making a difference.
Hmm.
But at the same time, most people aren't willing to get uncomfortable enough to actually try,
Yeah, face the fear of failure.
right? Most people are waiting for that perfect moment
Yeah.
when all of the plates that we're spinning. Life is like a circus act, right? You
Hmm.
got your family plate, you got your work plate, you got your health and fitness plate, you got your personal development plate, and all of it. And then you add in a relationship, so maybe we're spinning 5 different plates at once.
Hmm.
And oftentimes people say, well, once 4 of those plates are spinning on their own, then,
Yeah.
right? But we know that never happens. So
Mhm.
how many people are looking for something more? I would say most. But how many people actually do
Right.
is
Right.
is a lot less.
Hmm. And I think that's also you know, I don't know if people would have it intellectualized to this level, but I think also it's a matter of, there is a huge majority of people that aren't happy, but also I think on some level they might even know that this isn't the right fit for them, and they aren't happy, but this just isn't their solution. Maybe they know that their passion is something else, right? I keep throwing knitting out there because it's such a silly thing, but maybe it's podcasting, right? Like if I would have gone into there, I would have known maybe, yes, I am unhappy, but this isn't quite the route I want to have. But I think just open them out to that idea of that there is other options is good. And if this is a good option, it doesn't even have to be something they did for their whole life. Maybe it's just that waking up to being able to make a change, right? Giving people a taste of their own potential. And then if they wanted to work there for a couple of years, make some money. And then if they really loved it and wanted to stick out with it, they could, like you're doing, or if it was a couple of years. And I think you even said that to me when you first got into, you said, you know what, like I've looked into it. I'm pretty sure it's all legit. And I've met some really good people. I have some really good stories. But if not, who cares? It's a couple years, right? I'll just learn from it and come out of it better on the other side, right? And I think that's a huge piece of what gave me more confidence. That, oh, okay, well then, and you're still doing it, right? And I feel like if by now it was something that wasn't treating you very well, or that you, like you said, could poke holes from the inside, I wouldn't think you were still there. And I think that's what made me so curious of, giving it a little more leeway than I maybe regularly would have, because I think with other people I wouldn't have. And I've known other people that have been with World Financial Group, and when I speak to them about it, it feels like bullshit, right? When I talk to you about it, it seems legit. When I talk to other people about it, it seems like bullshit, right? Which is, I think, another piece of me that gave me anxiety about you being in it. But I think I got to give you more credit of your intelligence level, and you would know what is and isn't good and what is legit and what's not legit, right? So I had to give that to you, but definitely it was something that worried me. But the fact that you're still doing it 3.5 years later, still enjoying it, still when I talk to you, it still sounded excited about the same level of excitement as I did the first time, right? And you still get really fired up about it, and that's what's awesome to see, and that's what gives me faith that, oh no, it seems like it's a pretty good group. However, probably my biggest hang up with it, if I'm honest, my biggest criticism is the Instagram videos. Okay. And the self-help part of it. I love the idea of it, but and maybe it comes back to maybe I just don't have enough knowledge. Like I was saying earlier, when I hear self-help without a very clear base to work off of, right? Like when I hear it from someone like Steve Holbrook, where I've heard you tell me the story of what he did, right? It kind of it doesn't come off like that. But then to hear some of the lower level, maybe only doing it a couple of weeks, trying to give those same speeches, and that just turns me right off. And that was the biggest hurdle for me to get over. And I have gotten over it now. I've gotten more used to hearing you do it. And I think for you, it was less painful to hear, because I know that you do have a lot of that self-help within you, and that is a lot of who you are. But then I can see a lot of people that are just being kind of taking that persona on. And I think eventually it probably would grow to a place where they are saying it from a place of honesty, but it just seems disingenuous sometimes. And I feel like I'm very curious, do you guys ever talk about that side of the business and how much it helps versus hurts?
Like social media or
yeah, so social media, and I maybe I need to be more specific, but when you first started, it was a lot of you'd put on those, your face on the camera, and you and all these other guys, right? Because you would reshare. I'd watch. It wasn't just me watching you. I'd flip through and watch a lot of the people doing it, and I just had I felt like it was almost hurting the cause more than it was helping myself. For how I was viewing it. And I know I'm a very particular person. I'm very, picky. And like I said, I had already asked these questions, and I tried to give it enough room because I do appreciate what it's done for you. And I like I said, I have so much faith in your bullshit detector that it gives me a lot more leeway with it. But then some of these other people, I just couldn't do it. And I was just wondering if that is ever discussed. Like, does that, the message that I'm putting across, is that ever discussed?
Yeah, firstly, when it comes to just the experience that a person has with another person, another agent from our firm, it comes back to the whole, every person is independent, right? And just like if you were to work with one realtor, you work with one person, and within 2 minutes, you're like, there's no way that this person is listing my house.
Yeah.
Right. Just like it doesn't matter what they say. They could tell me that their commission's only going to be 0.5%. It doesn't matter, right? There's no way. And it's the same thing with us, right? There's going to be some people that just, you know what, maybe they don't have the best intentions, not just with our company, but in general.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it. One of the people I saw do the World Financial Group, I didn't trust his inner moral compass of that and his intentions of what he was doing it for. And I think that was the biggest difference. And I could see that. And I guess maybe that's where I was missing that piece. Is it's a lot about who you're talking to, right? The World Financial Group is a tool. And the people that are implementing that tool, that's who you're signing up with, right? And that's was always how I felt. When people would ask me about, like, oh, Kyle works for World Financial Group, I don't know enough about it to be able to say I have my hangups, all these different my things I don't know about. I just haven't done the research, but I trust Kyle, right? I can't recommend WFG to you just because of my lack of knowledge, but I can recommend Kyle to you. And I think he would do, and I think he has the right intention that he would never try to, he was always try to help you, right? And I think that's the biggest piece of it. And I guess maybe that's if that's what you guys are looking for, maybe that's a piece that social media thing and that is trying to find people that are self-help and looking to help people, because that is a big core piece of what you have to do for it to be successful. Because I do think when you're talking about money, um, you need to have full faith and full peace of mind. And I feel like that was my big hang up with those Instagram videos, because if there's one place I don't want to see any disingenuity, it's with my pocketbook, right? If I'm giving someone my money, I want to see 100% honesty all the time. And I feel like when you're trying to put on a show of some of those things, it comes off as a show. And I just thought, oh man, I wonder if they discuss this internally, the effects that can have. Because I feel like maybe myself, I look at it on more of an intellectual level of what I'm seeing, but I feel like for a lot of other people that haven't thought of it, that's a feeling they get, and
Yeah.
they don't know what they're feeling. Just something about that didn't seem right with me, right? And I feel like when you're talking about your money and people investing, you can't have any of that. And I just wonder, and I didn't see a lot of that when I went to when you came up to Grand Prairie to visit and to do. I didn't see as much of that. It was more heartfelt. You guys were talking, right? When you were talking to the group there, you were speaking from the heart and about the journey you went through and how you got there, and it was so much less. It was it was almost the same as what we were talking about earlier with the social media versus the real life. When I saw you in that room, it was the real life version, and it was compelling, and I could see you were talking from the heart. And the people in the room don't know if you're bullshitting or not, but the stories you were telling, I got to live through that with you and watch you go through that. So it was amazing to me to watch that. But then when I see it on Instagram, it loses that level of genuineness. And I don't want to throw you under the bus, because I think this is more of a bone I have to pick with the thing as a whole. And it's almost, to me, is like you almost need to get to a level of uh, where you can do it the right way. Because I feel like when I watch someone like Steve do it, it doesn't feel disingenuous at all a lot of the time, right? It's just him, and he's gone to that point and he has shown it. And I think the more and more you do it, the better you're getting at that. And maybe I'm just not giving people like I said, you need to have the space to fail and to get better at that. Everything's a skill. Maybe that's me just being too hard on it, and I think I am. But I also think that if I was with World Financial Group, I would want somebody to tell me that so that I could get better, and I could watch that in myself to make sure I'm not hurting my own cause. Because I would hate to be doing something that I think is helping, and I think is, everyone else is doing it. Why am I not making videos? Bobby, Sally, even Steve Holberg's making these videos, right? But maybe it's not for you. Maybe that's just not who you are. You're just not good enough yet, and maybe you're doing yourself a disservice by showing a little bit of disingenuity surrounding money. That was my big bone to pick, and I think that was my big hang up, more so because, like I said, you had already explained a lot of the background, how you make money in that, and I'm just wondering maybe if you had ever even thought of that, or if it's ever discussed, or what.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I want to say is I appreciate again what you said, and just the trust that you have with me and those kinds of things. It really means a lot.
Of course.
But on the social media side of things, I mean, I can totally understand where you're coming from. I can totally appreciate that. I mean, I could imagine how that could come across. And I think that one of the main things for us, and maybe I'll give a two-part answer here.
Yeah.
In the beginning for me, it was, I mean, I was making myself uncomfortable, and a lot of my ability now to be able to go and speak, right, to a couple hundred, to 500, to 1,000
Yeah.
people. The reason why I can do that, it largely is because of Instagram.
Right.
Because,
Right.
right? Because you're just going, and it's like no BS. You're recording yourself. You're getting vulnerable. You're putting yourself out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And so that was a big thing in the beginning for me. But now that I'm starting to step into more of a leadership position, right? A
Mhm.
senior broker now. It's a lot of what I do is training and developing other people and their mindset,
Mhm.
and all of these kinds of things. Is a lot of it is, most of the people that start with us come from an employee background,
Right.
where every day they just show up. They're told, okay, you show up at 7 a.m.
Mhm.
You're going to go home at 3, and from 7 to noon you're going to do this, and then you have an hour break, and then from 1 to 3 you're going to do this, and you got to make sure you hit this, and don't
Mhm.
forget this. But when someone becomes an entrepreneur, they become self-employed, or they go into business for themselves, you completely lose that.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that is the biggest struggle, is helping people shift their mindset from being told what to do to figuring out what to do. And yes, there's support, right? Yes, I'm here to help everyone. And I mean, at the end of the day, the more that I can help people win, the more that everyone's going to win. But that is where a big basis for wanting to put consistent content out is also to help people that I'm building, so that, hey, when they do, because we know the first thing in the morning, they're going to look at their Instagram. If I can occupy that small piece of real estate in their brain,
right,
first thing in the morning, or maybe last thing at night, or maybe in the middle of the day when they're really feeling that they're stuck in that rut, if I can get a little bit of my mindset into their brain, then I know that that's going to help them move forward. And over time, it'll attract more people, and all those good
things. And honestly, my mindset on it has already shifted now that you kind of said it, because what the piece I was missing was the goal behind it. I didn't see what the long-term goal, but when you say being able to make yourself vulnerable like that and risk the embarrassment, that is what allows you to step up in front of those people. And that's crucial to that job. You need to have that skill to be able to go up and speak from the heart and be genuine to the people. And like you say, as you go along, you're faking the funk a little bit to practice it at the start, and then you grow into speaking from the heart and actually being motivated. Right? And I wasn't getting that piece. That's what I was missing. All I was asking is, I think it needs to be, I think you guys are doing yourself a disservice to not at least discuss the effect that the disingenuity at the start, which is just natural to being uncomfortable on the camera, and you have to almost put on a little show. I feel like that is very harmful when people look at that when they're going to give you money. And I think as long as you guys realize that and realize the benefits of learning those skills of being vulnerable and being able to speak from the heart, in that outranks the importance, maybe some of the negatives that can come with it. As long as you guys are thinking of that and you understand that, then I'm totally behind the practice. That's awesome. But I would just hate for you guys to not realize that other piece that you're giving up, because now you don't have the whole picture of what you're doing, right? Because you are getting something really good out of it. I was just missing that, what you're getting good out of it. So I was only seeing it from the negative. But now that I see that there is a positive, it is well thought out, as long as you guys are balancing that with both sides and you're doing it accurately, I think that's a great. Now I understand it. That's what I was looking at. That was one of the pieces that I just never really got. It seemed like all this stuff, if I was a company that was, I feel like one of the biggest barriers you guys have to success is convincing people that you are legit. I feel like that's probably, if you overall getting money from anybody is hard enough as it is, but to convince people that you are legit and you want to bring people in, I wouldn't want to ever do anything that even came close to jeopardizing that honesty in that's why those videos just never made sense to me. I was like, man, if I was ever giving someone my wallet, I would not want to see, I would want to keep something like that hidden away. But that vulnerability too, and I guess maybe that's a level, it's the vulnerability is there, but it's the disingenuousness of the message sometimes, I think I found, right? It was like you need to, it was like this, I guess, maybe I put it this way. It's like you need to get comfortable putting yourself out there, but at the start you don't know what yourself is. So you're saying cliches and, rise and grind and all this stuff because you don't really know what you want to say, but you need to get practice in saying something, right? Just like starting a podcast, you might not know exactly what your style is or the rhythm of what you're going to do, but you need to try it to figure out what that is, right? I think that's more so what you guys are doing, but I wasn't seeing it that way, right? And I think maybe that's where you got to work on that with your new guys coming in. Just, I'm not that you need any of my help, but I was just saying of maybe making sure that they are, while doing it, keeping that in mind of trying to keep it as honest as possible and true vulnerability, right? It's vulnerability to begin with, regardless what you say to put yourself out there and just speak on camera. That's vulnerability. But the true vulnerability of what you need to get is that actual speaking your own truth, right? And trying to keep that in from the start. I know, like we say, it's a skill and you got to develop it. But I think keeping in mind the actual what you're trying to get out of it and what you're trying to grow with it, instead of just doing it because everyone else is doing it and saying the same things everyone else is saying, is trying to personalize it to yourself, so you're now getting more out of it. It's like when people go to hockey practice and you're not playing in practice like you're playing in a game. You're not giving yourself the best the best practice, right? You need to practice like you're in a game. And I think that's the same thing with stuff like that. Anytime you're trying to get better, you have to be very aware of what you're trying to get out of it and tailor your practice to that, right? That's what this podcast is I have a very kind of set idea of what I wanted to get to, and I have to take it very seriously and jump on it and keep it going so that I am getting better in the way I want to get better. Because if I just came on here and willy-nilly it, which I've done a couple times. I haven't been 100% happy with all the podcasts I've done so far, right? I think this is the 10th one. I've been happy with some, less happy with others, and I'm very hard on myself. So it's a very, I think sometimes they're better than I'm giving them credit for. But I think that's how, if you want to get better, you have to be a little ruthless almost, and expect a lot of yourself. It's not even ruthlessness. It's just having a really high expectation of yourself, and I think that can go lead people down bad paths. So they don't have high expectations of themselves. Again, goes to so many things, but if you don't have a high expectation of what you're trying to do, sometimes the practice can hurt you, right? If you're not really sure of what you're trying to get out of these Instagram videos, you just see everyone else doing it and it's part of the process, but you don't fully understand what you're trying to get out of it. I think you're going to hurt yourself more than you help yourself. Whereas if you went into it with that understanding and tried to, be a little, be vulnerable to talk about how it's embarrassing to hop about it, just and do it a little bit. I think that would go a long way to making that, also shortening that learning curve where you get better at it, because you're doing active practice, right? Instead of just kind of hoping you figure it out eventually, but you actually have a goal in mind of where you're trying to get to. You understand the negatives that could come with it and the positives that you're getting out of it, and now you're working at it accurately. I think that's a huge piece of it. I can't believe we just spent 10 minutes talking about those Instagram videos, but it was a big thing. It was a big part of it. I feel like that was my biggest hang up. And I feel like if it was my biggest hang up, I'm sure there's some other people out there that had maybe been on the fence about investing some other places, and those might have been the thing that kind of turned them off. So maybe that is.
Yeah. And if I can just speak to one thing you said there about, it's the let's just call it the legitimacy of the firm being sometimes a hang up when recruiting people. You may have seen this before on different platforms or heard of it before, but people who operate at a poverty level of consciousness think that every opportunity that comes their way is a scam. But people the people that operate at the world-class level, while there may be some skepticism, they get their question answered before making the decision. Right. And I think that's the difference between, let's call it that group of people and let's say someone like you, right, that has some questions. But what's your
first thing I did when you told me what it is, I called you right away and asked you those questions, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I got some questions. I got to get my questions answered, right? And so I think that's the biggest difference between people who get trapped and the let's call them the good idea guys. Yeah. Right. They always have a good idea. They're always the person. I got it. I got the $1 million idea. Yeah. Right. And then there's the doers, and those are the people that ask the questions, that they don't just sit it again, back to the beginning. They're not just sitting in the stands giving their feedback saying, hey, if I was doing it, I would have made the catch. If I was doing it, I would have made the play. No, it's that's a huge separator there. And I love that. I mean, this has been awesome, man.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're enjoying it, and that's exactly it. And I think it's something that's another piece of this that I want to get on this podcast. I think it's going to take me a long time to articulate it the way I want it to. But there's something in people that I think that I'm going to find every podcast. I'm probably going to describe it in some different way, but it's something that's in people. It's what separates, the doers from the talkers, like you say. And it's a certain fire, and I see that within people, right? Like yourself, and it manifests in so many different ways, right? Like you take someone like Fraser Oliver, who I had on this podcast, right, buddy of mine. He has it in him, and it manifests itself in his kindness and his willing to do things for others, right? He's just the nicest kind of soul, right? And that's the way it manifests in him. Other people, some of my other friends, my friend Chase, it manifests in his humor, where there's these things, and it's those common connections with these people that impress you in life, and it's these common threads that like I say, this is so hard to articulate, but it's just this certain, I don't know what, the certain fire that's inside all these people. And that's what I want. People keep asking what this podcast is about and what's the theme. And I feel like that is the theme. Like there's a million different themes, but I feel like showing that in people and trying to, by sitting down and having long form conversations with these people, trying to use my intellect to break down what it is about these people, because there's so many people around me and in life that I really look up to and have this thing, but I can't quite put my finger on. There's a lot of similarities, but then there's quite these huge differences between them. I want to distill that down. What is it about people that separates that? What did you call it? The poverty mindset versus the elite mindset, right? That is such a difference, right? Those people that will sit in self-pity versus those people that will pick themselves up and try and jump off. That is what I want to find out. What is it that? And I feel like every time people try and explore that, they're shut down or labeled something, and it's because it's scary. It's a powerful thing that, and nobody wants to see that thrive. But that's what I want. That's what the world needs right now, is more people like that. That's the real game changers. Those are the Teslas. Those are the, you know, the people that are really moving the sticks forward, right? Like,
Yeah.
And if we can figure, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when, I mean, obviously you can imagine I'm talking to different people all the time, prospecting different people.
Yep.
It's, going through interview processes, going with potential recruits. I mean, going through interview processes with potential clients. Not every client is a fit either. Right. You can imagine there's some people that you don't want to be responsible for.
Nope.
But that thing, it's, and everything, there's that thing, we call it the X factor. You can't define it, but when you see someone that has it, you can go, that's it.
Exactly.
That's it, right? They got it. They get it. It's like, I think you've seen Suits, right?
Yeah. Well, most of it. I haven't seen the last couple seasons, but I know that.
I just started rewatching it actually, and in the first season, right after Harvey brings Mike on, he said, he talks to him about just getting it, and that's that X factor. It's just getting it. It's just having that thing. And when you find those people that have that, especially if you're someone who has that yourself, and not to say that in an egotistical way or anything like that, then you just click.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. And I think to take it back even further to something else you said, I didn't jump on it right there because I didn't know if I had the basis, but now that I think you understand this concept, I think that's in everybody too. I think it's dormant, and it's because it's the harder path, and there's so many people, and just society there's so many forces trying to focus people away from this and just keep the status quo, keep that silent desperation. That's what we need. That's what keeps the economy churning. That's what keeps everything how it is. So I think there's so many things in effect trying to push them down. But I think that's what's going to be the next big shift forward in humanity is, no, that's in everybody. If we give people if you give people the tools and you start teaching them about these things like forgiveness and personal growth and identifying things that you do like in yourself and that you don't like, where they came from and what you can do to better yourself. What do you admire in other people and how can I bring that to myself? That is so much. Everybody has that within them. You just need to tap into it. And I think it's just once people understand that, it's your duty. The way I see it, it's my duty to help other people find that and to show that is in everybody. Because once you do see that, you can only do so much yourself. You can try and change as much as you can in your own little world, but you can do so much better by flipping that switch in somebody else, right? And that's what I felt like podcasts did for me. They flipped that switch. I don't think I was like this all the time, right? And I know it's hard to talk about yourself with that fire, but I think I see it in you, and I see it in myself, and I think that's part of the problem, is not being able to say it about yourself, not be able to be proud of yourself, be proud of having that in you, right? Speak of it. But anyways, I just see that as a duty to bring that out of other people, and I just think that this podcast can do that and just bring that forward. And I just think the momentum shifts that we're going to see once more important people buy into that and start thinking that way and start chasing their dreams and don't just follow the traditional path that's been laid out in front of them, and start striving a couple new ones. That's when we're going to start to see things pick up again and start moving in a forward direction, because it seems like the way the world is going right now, everybody's upset about it. Nobody really right? The right, the left, everyone's crying. They all have problems with the way it's going, but nobody's trying to do solutions. Everyone's just trying to pick apart the people that aren't them. So everyone's going to the negative sides of everything. Nobody's looking at what is good, because to admit what is good in something else is to give them power, right? And there's nobody's empowering everyone. Everyone's trying to tear everyone else down to build themselves up, and that is the biggest issue that we see. But the more people that can get comfortable with this, and I just think that's such a silly thing for people to be embarrassed. And I don't blame you for it, because I have the same thing of not wanting to say you have that fire. But I think the first step to all of this is understanding that in yourself, that it's in everybody. And once you've touched base with it, right, you can do some crazy things. And I think that's the message that needs to be spread, and everybody needs to jump in on. And that's what's going to change the world. That and listen to the content on multiple speeds. That's my other theory, that the brain can process information at like something, I can't remember, it's like 700 words a minute or something crazy, and normal speech is like 100 words per minute. So we can process things so much faster. And now with podcasts and videos and stuff, all with playback control, I think everybody should be taking in their content on 2 times speed, right? Like that one small switch of training, it's that, like we said with everything else, it's a skill. You got to start on 1.25 and then build yourself up to 1.5, 1.75, then 2, right? And then for me, I can go up to like 3 point. If I'm reading a book that I'm familiar with, I can listen to it on 4 times speed. But I can take a content of a book that would be 20 hours to read. I can read it in 5 hours if I listen to it, right?
Yeah.
And it used to be that would always hold me back because I could always read faster than I could listen to a book. But now, if you can listen to it on 3 times speed and you're now something, oh, I really want to learn about this subject, but I don't have 20 hours in my, oh, but you might have 5 over a week, right? You just listen to your car on the commute to work. You can listen to a whole book. And I think that's what's going to change. If that can catch on to the degree that it can, I just think so many people out there are not using the full breadth of what the mind power and processing power that you have. Right. And I think that if we can speed up how much we can input information and take stuff in, we can't talk at that. There's nothing that's going to allow us to speak at that rate of speed, right? But that's what we need to have. We need to have a really fast input and a slower output, so you think and you take in everything and you're able to process really fast, but you still keep that same speed of what you're thinking about, what you're going to say, and you're putting it out into the world, right? That is the big game changer, right? And that is something that I feel like nobody's ringing the bell on. So many of these things I'm really passionate about that I want to spread the message on, I'm hearing screamed from the rooftops on a couple other places that are really, really nice to see, and a couple other podcasts that eventually I'll probably, speak to more in depth on this podcast to get people to listen to them as well, because I think they're really powerful. But the one thing I don't ever hear anybody shouting about is that, that change of content speed. I think that is a huge shift, momentum shift that the world could take on. And I challenge, I just want to keep dropping it in when I can fit it into the conversation, because I think anybody listening, do it on YouTube. There's a playback speed button. If you want to watch a little documentary on something that you're interested in, put it on 1.5, and it's not that big of a deal. You'll get used to it really quick if you do that for a while. Put it on 2. Take in content. Challenge yourself. If you want to, with all these riots and stuff going on with police, look into policing, right? Watch something on policing, but crank it up and take that content in on a faster basis. If you don't have an hour to watch a video, maybe you got half an hour. You can mix it in, or watch 15 minutes. You watch half of it, and then 15 minutes you watch the other half. I just think we're so set up for a huge jump forward in what we can take in, and it all comes back to personal responsibility, right? It's easier not to do that, and people shy away from things like that because now it's taking away a lot of their excuses. People love their excuses, right? Just like they want to hold on to them like a teddy bear. I don't want to lose my excuse of who has 2 hours to watch a documentary. Oh, you got now you lost half your excuse, right? Someone cut your teddy bear in half. Now you only got half. What are you holding on to? So people reject it, but eventually you gotta let go of it and find out. Now your excuses are cut in half, right? And you have more time. You have more time to do what you want. You have more time to spend with your family. Those plates that are spinning, right? You have more arms out of nowhere. That change in knowledge of that shift, that skill you can learn can change a huge aspect of how you download through life. And I think that's a skill of being able to process things faster. It's a skill everybody should be practicing. Things like that, things like breathing exercises, things like reading. Like, there's such basic skills to how you walk through life. It really boggles my mind that people don't put more emphasis onto increasing them, right?
And I would even say, Nick, that there's some even more basic skills that need to be developed. For example, we've been talking a lot about our self-talk, and and you kind of mentioned it's you having some frustration as you're learning how to work these different programs. And I mean, I can imagine what your desk looks like. There's probably 10 different chords, and right. But I've heard this before, and it's worth saying again. There you go. Right. Imagine if we talk to each other how we talk to ourselves. We probably wouldn't be good friends.
No, not at all. And that goes back to what I said about, you should never speak to yourself like you wouldn't speak to a child, right? That it's the same thing. That same level of love and compassion should be universal between yourself and between everyone you talk to, right? But you can't keep that understanding with other people unless you bring it to yourself, right? You can't forgive other people unless you forgive yourself. It's so cliche, but it's so much. But it seems like everybody just wants the results outwardly, but they don't want to do the work inwardly to get there. But you're never going to get there. You're spinning your wheels. You could put all the effort you want into forgiving other people, but if you can't forgive yourself, right, that's just using forgiveness as one. But but even just empathy or there's every aspect almost that can be shared between two humans, whether it's love, hate, all those things. If you can't do it for yourself, you can't do it for other people, right? For all those positive things. that's the basis of everything. And that's the revolution that needs to take place, because the first step to that is understanding that. If you, and not even understanding, but believing it intellectually, right? You can hear, people can tell you that all the time. You have to work on yourself, because if it's cliche, definitely everyone in the world has definitely heard at least one of those ways of saying it, but that hasn't resonated. It needs to be long form like this, where people can give examples, right? You can tell people how that changed your life, that understanding how it changed life and how it could change their life in such a simple fashion, of just that small understanding of it starts with yourself, and that work you have to do starts with yourself, is a huge game changer. And I think that you just don't see it anywhere, because there's no long form aspects in any of the legacy media centers. You're only seeing it in podcasts. And I feel like I hate talking up podcasts so much, because I started my own. It sounds like I'm tooting my own horn, but I got into it for a reason, because I see the power that it can have. And I think that the loss of long form communication is what none of these things used to have to be explained to people. These were all innate. They were brought forward, whether it was your religion or your community, or just passage of time. You didn't have your phone to sit on. You didn't have all these things, right? All this compassion. If you were in a small village and you went through like some people walk through the world these days without compassion and empathy for other people, you wouldn't last long. You'd be kicked out of that tribe. You'd be living out on your own. You'd need it for survival, right? There was no option at one point in time to be anything else other than what we're trying to refine. All these things are things we've known for thousands and thousands of years, but just lately we've forgot them. We just need to wake up, and they're all there. That's what we're saying. All this stuff that's within it, it's all there. People just need to wake up to it, and that is what's so crazy. But there's so much money and so much power behind keeping it how it is and trying to come down. So now you see somebody like Joe Rogan that makes a couple $100 million deal with Spotify, and clearly has a huge reach, and their stocks skyrocketed with him, right? It was a good move for all sides. But the traditional media just, slaps a label on him and says, well, clearly he's saying some of these, and he's saying a lot of the same things, love, compassion, hard work, taking personal responsibility. Yeah. That's what's resonating with people. But instead of changing the way they think to match that and maybe start saying some of those things themselves, they just dig in their heels even further and try and do whatever they can, whatever underhanded ways they can cut up interviews and cut up clips to make people look bad. That's their MO. Instead of trying to make a real wholesale change in what they're doing, they just try the most dirty, underhanded tricks they can have, but it's just spinning them around the bowl of the toilet, the way I see it. I think it's a mess.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's most people are focused on identifying the weaknesses in other people. And you've probably heard this before. A lot of the things that we end up projecting externally have to do with what's going on internally.
Everyone.
Right. And here's the crazy thing. If someone asked you to give them a list of your 10 best strengths, do you think you could make that list faster or slower than a list of your 10 weaknesses?
I honestly don't know the answer to that, but I think even further than that, Kyle, I think if you asked me that 4 months ago, I think I would answer immediately the negative list. I could come up with faster. I think in chasing a dream, in doing something, I think that's what shifts that. And I think that's almost a good Turing test in terms of where you are in your personal responsibility and your personal growth, of asking someone that question at different times in their lives. And I think that would be a huge insight into where they are on that journey, right? Because I can see that for myself, right? I've noticed that in the last couple of months, I've definitely did the work. I don't think I'm at the point where I could say with 100% certainty I could come up with that positive list quicker than the negative list, because I still think I have a long way to go, and it's a long journey, and you're never going to be done. But definitely I'm in a lot better place now than I was before, and being able to just notice that, I think that's hard for people to notice and be able to say you've made progress, right? And people don't want to do their own homework, but you have, and it's a personal work. And I think that's what's, trying to take away that taboo of doing that work and getting yourself to a better place is so much is of so much importance right now that it should be shouted from the rooftops on every different media place they can get it, right? And that's what I'm trying to look for, is people with that understanding. And I can take my best guesses with my friends like you. That's why I want to have you on, because I felt like you would understand these kind of things, and I could have this discussion just because we used to have discussions like this all the time. I think that's a real, like I said, a real base of where I learned a lot of these skills, is talking about it with you and being able to take the emotions out of it and just look at things logically and come up with the solutions. there's always so many ways that other things can be going wrong, but there's always things that you could do. If you can always find the personal accountability within some things, even when you do get a shit roll of the dice, you can always, sometimes you really have to do some mental gymnastics to find some personal accountability in it, right? You can be just driving down the road and a rock comes over from a truck and hits your windshield and you hit the ditch and all this shit. It seems completely not your fault, but there's a way you can figure out, like you said, maybe if you didn't procrastinate that thing, you would have gone on the road a little earlier. There's always those things, and sometimes it's not fun to do because it takes you out of that self-pity that is so comforting and warm and used to for all these people, and it's uncomfortable to force yourself out. As soon as you feel that coming on you have to kick it away and nope, fuck that, that's not what I do. I'm going to take, even if I have to go 10 steps removed to figure out the flap of the butterfly wings that makes this my fault, that's what you need to do. And if you keep that, you'll always be getting better. So now, like I talked about in all these soft skills of things that people should be working on, life is that all the time. If you keep the mindset that you're learning it all the time, if you're keeping self-determination in the forefront and what you did to cause these things in the forefront, you're always learning and you're always getting better. So now instead of, you go through life and every once in a while you'll do a big project of work and that's where you're learning and that's where you're growing, or do something big, that's good. But if you can change that mindset, change how you're doing, so you're always learning in everything you do, driving to work, you're learning, in talking to your spouse or your kids, you're learning, right? You're always trying to better yourself. You're gonna lower that learning curve and exponentially get further in anything you want to do, right? That's just what we need to do. But that mindset of constantly learning requires you to jump out of that self-pity, and that's what is so hard to fight against. But I think that's definitely important.
And that's people. Sometimes I get asked, like, do you really enjoy what you do? Like, is it really fulfilling?
Mm-hmm.
And does it feel good to be able to help someone, to help assure them that, you know what, hey, this is what we were doing before, and we're going to make a couple of tweaks, and you are going to be able to get to retirement, maybe even a few years before you thought, and hey, we're able to go and work on some debt things, and we're able to free up $1,000 a month for you in cash. Does that feel good? Yeah. But the fulfillment for me comes from helping develop people, mm-hmm. from helping shift someone from the why me mindset to the how is this serving me, mm-hmm. right? In the beginning, people usually don't have a high level of belief in themselves. No. Right. And not just with my platform, but I think in business in general. Right. And most of the time with business, there's not someone that they can go to pour belief into them. And so where I get a lot of the fulfillment is helping guide people to the point where they have the belief in themselves. So right there, you just change their life.
Yeah.
But the second thing, where something happens to them and you're still the first person they call, but when they call you, they already have a solution.
Oh, I love that. That is at work when I can have someone that knows if you just bring problems you don't want to, and makes that switch, like you said, where they know that I'm going to go a lot further if I can understand the problem and I can come with, even if it's not the right solution, but just a solution. That is such a huge game changer.
You're developing a leader. You're developing leaders, and man, that feels good.
No, exactly. And I've noticed that just from the outside in, it seems like you get a lot more out of the aspect of building your team for that passive income, more so than getting people to invest with you on that mindset. And I think that speaks a lot to yourself and a lot to kind of earlier what we were saying, where I've seen some other people WFG where it seemed very opposite, where they were their main goal was money. And however they went about it, they didn't care if it was getting you to give me their money or get you onto the team just so I can start making money. But money was the main focus. And I feel like that's what you could feel. But for you, it seems like money is the second thing. You would love to build someone on your team, and you like to see them. I've seen people. I had the pleasure of meeting a couple people that you worked with closely and that you kind of had taken under your wing, and to see that in you and see the enjoyment, the fulfillment that you get out of it gives me so much more faith in. And that's what I'm happy to hear this. And that's when I told you, I said, I think coming on this podcast, it's not huge yet, right? Probably won't be heard by many people, but eventually I have faith that it will be. And people are going to be able to go back to this, look at this, and see someone they trust. And I think there's going to be people that are going to come to you. And like you say, maybe I would be very questionable if they didn't have a lot of questions coming to you. That's what you want to see. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that come to you, and you can build a good team. And this is going to be another huge tool for you to be a place. And like you say, you can come on now, and you're going to be coming on, I'm sure, over the years. You'll be on here all the time. But it's going to give people a long form area for them to see who you are and why. Like it's being able to show people your why. You know how we talked about how important knowing your why is, and I think it's also doubly important in something like that where money is involved and that level of trust isn't there. Showing your why and being able to show people that is going to go so much further. I think you could sit in a room for people and tell them about what a financial group. But I think something like this, where you can be a bit vulnerable yourself, talk about that kind of thing, and bring people on. I think it's going to go so much further and just be kind of an investment. And that's what I'm. This is a very clear, obvious one, but I think that's going to be also something I've been thinking about with lots of these things. Is these people that I think are maybe they're not there yet of where they need to be brought up to the world, but just starting that of getting them comfortable with that and having a basis for people to get to know them for my audience that eventually builds so that they have the resources, right? Taking those people with that fire and amplifying their message in any way I can, right? You know, those people that get it and that I have confidence that aren't going to give up, that are going to keep grinding, keep doing special things, whether it's on the path they are now or whatever they transition to in the future, and amplifying that in the best way possible. And I think that's how I'm going to make my mark is, you know, just showing people cool things and bringing that to them. And I just think it's so nice to know that I'll be able to bring benefit for them too. Right. And just to know, right. Because I'm not trying to make money off this podcast right now. That's not what it's about. But if I can help my friends make money on it, that would be amazing. Right. Like if any of my friends ever start a startup or entrepreneurship or something like yourself, they're going to be the first ones on here because I just want to I would love nothing else than to help other people out and bring people that truly deserve it, I guess. I don't want to just help everybody out. If you're willing to put the work in, you can prove that you understand that and you're willing to put in that work, then anything I can do to help. And I just think that's so beautiful to be able to be put in this position. I'm just so thankful that I'm doing it and that I'm putting that work in to get better myself so that when people do have something they need to do and it's a big opportunity for them, if I can build this to a point where right now it's just an opportunity for me, but I feel like it's going to build to a point where it's going to be opportunities for other people. And if I can keep in mind that I just need to keep getting better myself, it doesn't matter about the money or the popularity or the fame. It's just I need to better myself as an interviewer and as a podcaster so I'm in the best position possible for when people need me to shout their message. I can do that in the best way possible, right? And I think that's what's going to be so amazing down the road. If I can get it to the point where I can take something like this that's very convoluted, like Wolf Financial Group, where people have lots of questions, and show the different sides of it and help people be adjusted and help you proceed your business forward. I think that's going to be another huge piece that I'm looking forward to growing into that. I'm just so excited for this and where it's going. I just can't. I'm just so thankful for everyone that does listen already and the people that are going to listen to in the future. And I just feel like I have so much confidence now that I've started and I'm 10 episodes in that I'm going to keep doing this. And I'm going to bring it to a place that I almost feel like it's an investment for people that are listening right now. You know, if you're listening right now, the day this released and in a couple of years when lots of people are listening to it, you can say that you're in this from the beginning. You saw what it was and what it could be at the start, and it's going to be an investment. It's going to be a cool thing. And anybody, if you're listening right now, feel free to reach out and come on. If any of this stuff resonates with you, right? It's the stuff that I'm passionate about. Anything you hear me talking about, stuff I'm passionate about. If any of it resonates with you, reach out and come on because that's all I want to do. I want to get as many people that want to think similarly. Just reach out. It's awful to ask people to come on this thing. It's terrible. It's probably the worst part is having to go through that mental and emotional gymnastics of hyping yourself up to put yourself out there and ask somebody to come on here. So if people are resonating, come on, you know, that if you want to be a part of this from the start and it resonates with you, come be a part of it. And if that's listening and that's how you are being a part of it, that's awesome. But if you want to listen and come on and jump in and have something to share, more the merrier, right? Like that's what I'm waiting for. The next big shift is for people to understand that and come to me to want to be on and want to contribute to it. Right. I think it's going to be a matter at the start of me just forcing people like you that I know will be good. If I can get you into that chair, it's going to be magic, right? We're going to connect. I know we've had those talks. I know what's within you and how you think of things and the way your brain works and what it can do. And then eventually it's going to be people bringing that kind of thing to me. And that's just so exciting. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
And kind of in that sense, maybe, of where I'm going with that, of how I see it. How do you see World Financial Group when we talk, 2 years, 3-year plans, 5-year plans? Do you have an idea? How far have you looked ahead and where do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, are you talking like income or other businesses or
anything, whatever, however you envision success. I feel like trying to lead people into what they succeed, right? Like even if it's just
yeah,
happiness, right? Regardless of what you're doing, that's fine too. But I just wonder, how do you personally envision what you want to be and what success is to you?
yeah, that's an awesome question. I mean, when I first got started, I my first thought was that if I could earn the same income as, an average full-time job,
Mm-hmm.
if I could bring in 3, 4 grand a month and be my own boss, right, and just have control,
Yeah.
that was my first goal. And then once I accomplished that, then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
now you're right, your belief meter gets cranked up,
Yeah.
and so then it starts to evolve. And obviously, I mean, last fall I moved out to Ontario to open an office out here,
Yeah.
start to build and develop a team. And I mean, has it been all sunshine and rainbows? No. Has it been one of the best things I've ever done? Absolutely. Right. It's just the amount of growth and everything. It's absolutely incredible. But I mean, over the next 5 years, I mean, I know that we're going to build an agency that, firstly, we're on a mission over the next 10 years to go and help 20 million families across North America.
Wow.
Right. And so what my part within that is that I mean, I'll have an agency that's got between 500 and 1,000 licensed agents that are out there that are just helping everyday Canadians
Mm-hmm.
achieve their financial goals, relieve some of that stress and that pressure that they feel, right? And down the road, do I see myself, getting into additional businesses? Yes. I mean, there's a big part of me that's all about contribution and giving. And,
Mm-hmm.
I had access to a lot of opportunities growing up that I'm fully aware most children do not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I achieve higher levels of financial success, I want to get into a position where I can go and I can make a difference in those kids' lives,
Yeah.
and I can help families financially. And I know that World Financial Group, like you said, it's just a platform. It's me. I'm the business,
Mm-hmm.
but this platform is going to allow me to build a business that's going to give me the resources to make the difference that I want in the world. And that is what fires me. I just got goosebumps through
Yeah,
my
I know.
whole
Me
body.
too. I'm right with you. I have goosebumps too. That's awesome. Fuck, I love that. And I think that's probably a beautiful way to wrap this up. I've already taken 3 hours from you, but that's beautiful. And I really appreciate that you, throughout this goal, you're keeping what's important to you in mind and fully on the forefront, so you don't forget about that, and that giving back is important to you. I think that's beautiful. If people do want to get in contact, if they are hearing what you're saying and it's resonating with them and they want to jump on the team, like I said, I can't recommend World Financial Group because I think it is so dependent on the person, but I can recommend Kyle because I've seen what he can do. But if someone wanted to reach out to you, how would they do that, Kyle? If they either wanted to invest or jump on the team, what would be the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, the first step is really just having a conversation and see if there could be a fit on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way is probably through Instagram. My handle is my name, Kyle Ricento,
Yeah, and
all one
I'll
word.
link that on everything when I put this out. That's awesome.
Perfect. And I just want to say as well, Nick, I appreciate you reaching out to me and having me as a guest on your show. It's that means a lot. The trust that you have in me, and I'm looking forward to what this thing is going to become. Just like you said about me, I have absolutely zero doubts in my mind about where you're headed. I mean, we already know what the end game looks like, the things we're going to be doing, the places we're going to see, the contributions we're going to have.
Yeah.
And this really just is the first step. And I'm excited for what's to come, man. Thanks for having me today.
Awesome. That's amazing way to end it. Thanks, Kyle. I love you, brother.
Awesome. Take care, Nick. Likewise.
All right. See you, man. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. That was episode 10. If you could subscribe, give me a review, send any feedback back my way, and follow the VonDubCast on Instagram. That would be awesome. Thanks again. Can't say just how much I'm enjoying this, and thanks for coming along on this ride with me. See you next week.